Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Sorry, I was muted.
Oh, no worries. Did you guys paint your house or no?
No, I wish we could. There's something in our lease that says if we do, we have to paint it back to what
Um,
what it is. So it's like this ugly brown and this blue. And
I
the
have a
rest
friend.
is white. It's so boring.
The ceiling's pretty.
Yeah,
I
the
have, this
ceiling
is not
matches.
related at all. I had this friend in college and he got apartment. He was not really a friend, he's just somebody I knew. But he decided to paint all the appliances for some reason, which I don't know what he was thinking. And they made him buy all brand new ones when he left, and it was awful.
Oh my God. That sucks. And
Yeah.
that's crazy. And I've never heard of something like that. That's really funny.
I've never been like, oh, I'm going to paint the refrigerator.
Yeah, what? Oh my God, and how expensive.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
How are you guys
Yeah,
doing on the election?
we're doing really well. We're making really good progress. Unfortunately, I do have jury duty tomorrow. I have to report. Obviously, we'll see how it goes and like how long I'll have to be there. But we have Molly set up and ready to go. And I told her not to worry too much because we are making really good progress. And so I hope she doesn't feel like she has to do extra tomorrow. I told her to just take it easy and we're all good.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. Um, I'm glad I remembered to call in because I I almost forgot. I
I
just
feel
have so
like it's
much.
almost humorous how much people get jury duty in Gilpin.
Yeah, well, also like I have a number, but like when I called, they were like, if you're scheduled for jury duty on March 18th, you must appear. It didn't even like list um specific numbers or like you we just all have to go.
I haven't had jury duty in maybe like 10 years at least.
Well, I've never had it, and as I said, I've always been really excited and really hopeful, and now it's just like the worst possible timing. And as I said, I forgot all about it until after we hung up. I was packing up my bag and I've been carrying around my summons so I don't forget. And thank God, because I saw it and I was like, oh my God, I need to call. Um, so yeah. And yeah, it's just bad timing.
Jen, how are you doing? Oh, yeah. Did you get dinner?
Me, no. I have ingredients to make a nice salad, so I'll get around to it.
Your plant corner back there looks very vibrant. Looks like they're very happy.
Thanks. They were much happier in Ned. I had a lot more sun in my whole, like this whole place has less sun. Um, so I've lost a lot and it's been quite the transition, but the ones that are around are okay. Thank
It's
you.
nice. Having plants is nice.
Yeah, my mom is really good at it and she works at the garden store and I she's always adding to my collection.
Diane
Yeah.
has been getting into it. We're getting more,
Cool.
but
That's awesome. That's good to know too. For when I get overwhelmed, I'll know who to give them to
yeah,
now.
right. I told all the board we were moving virtual, and then um, I told Andrew Bliss, who's the only one who really has anything on the agenda. So
Well, thank you for doing that. Let me see. Yeah.
on a mission over there.
Just stop by for a second. Maybe she'll come say hi. Always on a mission, so.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Oh, we're cruising along.
I still love the
How are you
green,
doing?
John.
Huh?
I still love the green.
I was all ready for St. Patrick's Day. I was ready for the public meeting in it, but it's still good. I saw
I
you and
obviously
Macy. We tried to catch a leprechaun at our house last night, but it was too sneaky.
What's the leprechaun's name?
I don't think we know. You have like random leprechauns. It might have been more than one because we had a box with a pipe cleaner ladder going into it and a sign that said free gold, which, you know, it just didn't work.
that's a good
It got out
trap.
somehow. Yeah, it was gonna get stuck. It just didn't quite work. But it did leave gold chocolate coins all over our house, which is pretty cool. So the
That's
That's
very cool.
important.
Yeah, that's awesome.
chocolate's really the best part. So hi, Billy.
Hey everyone, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh, doing well. Joining you from San Antonio, Texas.
Awesome.
Is that where the Alamo is?
Exactly, yeah. Like we're on the river walk here at some Grand Hyatt or something in it's a work conference. And yeah, last night I went out just walking around and I just stumbled right onto into the Alamo and the way they have it lit up at night is pretty wild, pretty cool. And actually our reception tomorrow night is at the Alamo. So
Oh, fun.
Cool.
we're actually hanging out there tomorrow. So it'll be kind of neat.
No basement there.
What's that?
No basement there.
Yeah. Fun. Sure. Well, thanks everyone.
Hi, folks.
Appreciate. Oh, cool, Luke. I didn't know you were going to be here. Um, Tanya, is Tanya coming or is she not making it? Do you know?
I had her down as absent this evening.
Okay. Well, either way, I think we have enough folks to get started. So hello everyone, and welcome to the and happy St. Patrick's Day. Welcome to the March 17th open BOT meeting at 7:01. Macy, can you take the roll?
Mayor Billy,
I'm here.
Mayor Pro Tem Sterling,
Here.
Trustee Maris,
Here.
Trustee Miller,
Here.
and Trustee Jocelyn.
Here.
Thank you. I'd like to note for the record that Trustee Corvalon and Trustee Larson are absent this evening.
Thank you. Appreciate that. With that, we'll go right into consent agenda. We have 6 items, warrants, a couple of meetings worth of minutes, the SIPA grant application, the long-awaited extension of water storage IGA with City of Boulder, and the licensing authority for Eldora Mountain Resort. Any questions, clarifying questions for John and his team? Any motions?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Thanks, Luke.
Second.
Thanks, Tierney. Second. Macy, when you're ready.
Mayor Pro Tem Sterling,
Yes.
Trustee Maris,
Yes.
Mayor Billy,
Yes.
Trustee Jocelyn,
Yes.
and Trustee Miller.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you all. With that, we'll go right into staff reports. If you have any questions for town staff, now it's time to ask. Is there anything you want to add, staff, John, anyone?
Well, just my staff report has a shout out for Rita Six, which I know you guys all know how amazing she's for our organization. She is going to be retiring here pretty quickly, and I just wanted to recognize her in my staff report. Also, in there, I've just got to recognize it. We've got a lot of staff doing great things right now. Macy's working on the election and getting that ready to roll. We have a new employee, Jana, who's been hired in the water department and working in parks as well. So that's really what I wanted to show you guys the work that we're doing in across the organization, and then just recognize that our staff is doing awesome work.
Thanks, John. Appreciate that.
John, is there any more you can say about the Big Springs egress status?
I can tell you that I have been working with Attorney Madsen and Mayor Giblin and then Ned Fire on the route. And I think that we've been looking at the different alternatives. Kind of like I said in my staff report, we're going to be ready to bring forward an info item on this pretty soon, but we're just working to make sure that we've got I's dotted and T's crossed for what's coming next. Mayor Billy, I don't know if you have anything you'd add to that, but.
Yeah, I appreciate, we've been working with Ned Fire and, our engineer JVA and some productive meetings with the county. And I think things look really optimistic that we'll be coming together around a route that we'll be bringing to the board to talk through more and to the public to talk through more. And yeah, so that's been moving along, and I think we're nearing the point where we'll get to talk about it again soon.
Cool, thank you.
Well, any other questions for the town staff? If not, I will go into board of trustee reports. I attended the Peak Housing Health and Human Services meeting last Thursday, and so we had Larissa from the Community Foundation of Boulder County, talking about the Field of Interest Fund. Just an idea for a possible, fund that could be set up for health and human service needs here in the community, the greater community. Talked about, the Peak being a potential sponsor for that. We all discussed and voted unanimously to dissolve the Mountain Human Services Collaborative. It's really hasn't been very effective in its state, but we have other options to work with the county that are much more. That's just really what we've been doing. So we dissolved that collaborative. Updates, the individual entities that were there each gave updates, and then we talked a little bit about Excel subsidizing some backup power options for people, the whole house Powerball battery backup, and then we talked some about the planned power outage notifications. And then a little update on Tebow. So talked with them today and most recently, and they are working through a contamination zone plan with the CDPHE, so they've had to go back and make a few changes, but they had to find a landfill that will take the refuse, will take the remains of the building. So they secured it today, actually. They finished finalizing it, so they were gonna turn in their decontamination zone plan today or tomorrow to the CDPHE. They expect now, because they've gone through a few rounds with them, that'll be approved by Friday. So they refer to it as a full start on the 23rd. So they're going to use the same contractor who did the stabilization, because it'll be faster to stick with them versus putting it back out there for bids and contractors and searching for a new contractor. They do have a new testing agency who they had brought on a couple weeks ago. They will be on site for the sorting and decontamination process and cleanup process. They serve as the project manager for the CDPHE. This other testing company. So this decontamination is about giving folks who, tenants an option to reclaim some of their stuff, hopefully. So the tenants have all drawn up lists of things they think might still be in good shape. That'll be turned over to the contractor. They're going to go through it carefully and kind of look for those items, whatever they find. They have they'll set up a whole decontamination zone where it's basically vacuums and HEPA filters and just a secure location where they can decontaminate things. And if it's able to be decontaminated, then it could likely or potentially be returned to the to the tenants. So we're hoping that will yield good results for everyone. It may be that some folks still won't be able to get things if they can't be cleared in the decontamination process, but that'll happen. And then concurrently, they'll be starting to sort and kind of clean up and move things. So that should begin hopefully Monday. That's all I have at the moment. Other trustees?
I've got an update from the NEPADAC board. So just as a reminder, NEPADAC is our EcoPass board, the kind of Netherlands Transit Advisory Board to the Boulder County Commissioners. Two kind of major updates. One is about the NEDREC. It's still running. We've been getting good feedback about it. They ran an extra shuttle on that Friday for Subaru Winterfest, and it was pretty well used, I believe. Eldora is kind of running the NEDREC and contracting with Green Rides. They've liked working with Green Rides a lot, and Eldora is working on getting more ridership data so that we can just get those numbers and figure out if we want to keep running it. But it seems like we're getting a lot of positive feedback about it. People seem to use it and seem to enjoy it, so it's good news that it's working. And then the second kind of update. At our last meeting, we kind of talked about collaborating with the town of Nederland. Cass presented about that grant that she just recently applied for. Since it's kind of it includes information about bus stop improvements and plans for bus stop improvements. That's what NEPADAC had been talking about using some of our funding for as well. So we're just talking about collaborating a little bit more. And if I believe as part of the grant proposal, Cass had asked to waive the match requirement that's there. But if we can't get that waived, then it's possible that NEPADAC will be able to step in and cover those funds for the match purposes. So that was good news as well. And we voted on that too. And those were kind of the two big updates. We also went through edited bylaws that were minor changes and approved them. And that was it. That's all from me.
Tierney?
Awesome.
Other folks?
I'll go ahead and go. So we had Dr. Cog and just a couple of things that are really relevant to us. Denver Regional Council of Governments, for those who aren't familiar with the acronym. John, are you tracking the Power Ahead grant, which helps with funding for some of the electrification of new buildings?
I am aware of it. I haven't.
Okay.
We don't have anything in the works yet.
Okay. Just with I didn't know if potentially the new build out for Caribou, the shopping center, if there's any application there. But that might just as long as you all are tracking it. And then the only other things that are happening at the state level is House Bill 26-1237. There's some transportation modification, and this is Tierney probably plays more in some of the the Vision Zero stuff. Basically, it was just some clarifying of language, alternate traction device requirements on a state highway, things like that, prohibiting an individual from stopping, standing, or parking on a portion of roadway designed as a bike lane. So there was support from Dr. Cog, and that would be the only other thing at the state level that would have just kind of touched Nederland and some of the work we do. So that's other than that, from a TBO standpoint, I did get reach out from one of the tenants. There was a question, and there might be a misunderstanding, but there, just so that, John, you're aware that there was that question that popped up again around grants. And like, TBO had this fundraiser, and why couldn't the town distribute them? And I reminded them that, we weren't really set up for that, but pointed them to some of the other nonprofits that could do that. So that was kind of an outstanding thing. But the other piece was having the town take on the renovations. And I just reminded them that there could be a pathway for that, but it needs to come with terms that make it viable in terms of like length of terms if we were to have some sort of support for the Black Forest. So those are things that are still bubbling around out there that may come back to you.
Thank you. I can
Yep.
follow up.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah, and actually Tebow asked me point blank today if we could be the ones to handle the money. Because there's a bunch of money sitting with the community foundation that they can't, like from the fundraiser they had there at the Black Forest and some other funds too. And so I just made it clear to them, that's not, we're not going to be likely be able to be the stewards of the funds. But yeah, said there are some nonprofits. They seemed like they feel like they're in a bit of a dead end with that with community foundation, but so we may have to get more clear with them on which nonprofits they need to turn to. Community foundations kind of putting it back on them. So
yeah, I gave them several nonprofits to follow up with.
cool. Other trustees?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I wasn't able to attend the last ProSab meeting, but did have a good conversation with John and Sam and Nikki just about the PROST and just kind of the general direction of ProSab. And so I think some good stuff will come out of that. I think we'll be able to bring something a little bit more coherent. I know that we've sort of been rumbling around trying to get the PROST in front of the board for several months. And John had some time to review it and had some good feedback. So I think we're gonna do some revisions there. And I think it would, ProSab is one of the boards I think would really benefit from, our board alignment strategy to increase its effectiveness. So some of the things that we discussed, like how do we make not just the PROST, but ProSab in general more effective. So hopefully some good updates coming there in the future. Also wanted just to give a quick shout out to Sab and Cass for hosting the town hall over I guess it was Monday morning. Is that just yesterday? It's crazy. Yeah, and some really good stuff came out of that, which I will bring up down the road. So there's some really cool ideas brewing. And that's all for me.
Thanks, Luke. Andrew?
Yeah, I'll be meeting with the Sustainability Advisory Board on next Thursday as the official liaison for the first time. So last time I just kind of got to listen in on how they operate, etc. But other than that, I don't have anything to report. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate that. Any questions for us, for the trustees? If not, thank you everyone for your reports, and we'll move on to our action item of the evening, the Ned Fire Protection District's burn building letter of support. John?
Well, Mayor and trustees, this is just a letter that we're asking for to support Ned Fire putting a new burn building training facility at our public works yard. This is something that's been discussed for some time, especially since the old public works shop is now a utilized space. Ned Fire needs a place to safely train for the different conditions that they might experience out in the field. Ned Fire has met with our staff. I think one of our biggest concerns is that we want to be able to accommodate this use, but our yard is heavily utilized, and it is really important that any use kind of fits within the general scope of what's already happening there. we don't have a lot of space. And so we need to make sure that we have all the requirements of this facility plus the facilities that we already have in place working together. I think Chief Schmidtman is here. He's been meeting with both Josh Davis and with Nikki Dunn, who are the primaries at the Public Works facility. And I think that they've located a couple of locations that could work. And I think they're kind of working through that space. But what we need tonight is to know if you would be willing to pass a letter of support for them to look for a grant for this. I think Chief's identified one that could help fund a large part of the construction cost here. And so we wanted to be supportive of that. So in the packet, I did provide a draft letter, and you could make changes to it if you like, but generally it just says that you would support them going after this grant facility with the idea that we would be willing to potentially locate it on our facilities at the Public Works Yard. If you have any questions for me or for Chief Schmidtman, we're both here and happy to answer questions.
Thanks, John. Anything you want to add, Charlie, before we go to clarifying questions?
I don't think there's too much to add. I think it would be, in discussing with both our mutual aid partners to the north and to the south, it would be a benefit for all of us to be able to join in together, still be able to respond in district while we're training. Also, in speaking with the sheriff's office, they would also benefit from this facility as well, so they can do training with dogs, both with dogs and also with their SWAT team and officers doing searches and things like that. So I think overall this would be a huge benefit. A couple of the challenges that we've recently faced is that the Boulder County Training Center that's down in Gun Barrel has been closed for over a year with difficulties supporting the rebuilding of the damage that's been done over the years of training there. The other challenge that we face is that if we use that training facility, we're basically, an hour out of district at a minimum. And so if we have any large event, we're going to be not in a good place. And so, having this training facility in the town yards is one of, I think the area where the town shops is probably the best area that we could have in Nederland. It's pretty well hidden. We would have the ability to do extrication training there. We'd also be able to do live fire, as well as training on elevated surfaces and below grade surfaces. And so I think all of those things would be really beneficial. Speaking with both Nikki and Josh, so I spoke with Nikki yesterday, I spoke with Josh last week and today. We do have two locations that would work well for the town shops, making sure that we're not going to get in their way. And that's really important, is to make sure that we maintain that good relationship. So I think we have a lot of good that would come out of this project.
Thanks, Chief. Any clarifying questions for John or for Chief Schmidtman? Not hearing any clarifying questions. Let's go ahead and go to public comment. Anyone have a comment? Public comment on this? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the board for discussion and a motion. Motions aren't actually offered, so we'll just have to make a motion that's in context with what we're trying to do here with the burn building.
This sounds like a good opportunity for me, and I would support, or to me, not for me, or for all of us, I guess. So I'd support this letter being finished up and sent over to Chief to include in the grant proposal.
Any questions on the letter itself? Anything, folks?
Yeah, I do. I guess I have a question. I just want to ensure that the letter is sufficient for the grant purposes. Chief, have you had a chance to review the letter as it's written in this agenda? And do you feel that it would be what you need for the grant?
I have reviewed the letter. Sorry, I was trying to pull the letter back up. If you could just give me just one more second, I'll run through it real quick. I'm having some internet difficulties. Sorry, for some reason, I'm not able to log into the town's website to see the letter as it's written. I'm getting stuck in the verification that I'm a human.
Are you a human, Charles?
I thought I was.
We have
Can you
it
see it
pulled
on
up.
this? I shared what I shared.
Yep, we can see it.
Is your name Scott, Charlie?
Nope, I should just be Charlie.
It says Scott Schmidtman, Chief Scott Schmidtman.
Oh, that's really weird.
That'd be one amendment.
Where are you seeing Scott?
At the very top of on page 61 of the packet, the very top of the
I don't know
letter,
why.
it's
I will fix
Chief
that. I'm
Scott
sorry.
Schmidtman.
I don't know where that came from. I apologize.
No worries.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the letter, I think it would need to be changed as far as, the town is willing to continue discussions, that part.
I do think this is going to require an IGA
That was my
to
question.
do this, and I'm not 100. I just want to say I think that we need to make sure the board can make a decision based upon a final location. And so if there's a wordsmithing here that can happen that allows that flexibility, I think that's important for the reasons we mentioned, just in terms of the overall.
Yep. Totally understand.
But if it does require an IGA, we're at the very beginning process, and we would have to. Is this time sensitive? This is the date grant opportunity that's due when?
It is, but it's by the end of the month. I'm leaving town this weekend, so I was trying to get it done before I left, but I can leave it with my staff as well if it needed to be done next week. And I don't even necessarily know. Yeah, I think it's more of a nod that we can pursue this than have it down in writing that we. I just don't want to end up obtaining the grant and then like, oh, we have no place to put it.
Yeah. Obviously, Town Manager Kane, part of your feasibility would probably require the investigation of whether or not an IGA is needed.
I believe so, because it's the use of town-owned property. So I think we do want an agreement like that. I think we could wordsmith it a little bit. If you give me a little bit of latitude tonight, I can work with Ned Fire to try to find language that preserves the board's flexibility in future decision making, and also just the realities of the legal condition of the town-owned property, just to make sure that we reflect it. But I think, as Chief said, I think the goal here is just to indicate that we're willing to use town property for this purpose.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, like Trustee Maris, I mean, it seems like a good opportunity worth exploring some more. So, and you all can figure out the exact wording and how you want it.
Other comments? Edits? Or, suggestions on how to wordsmith that one line, if that's.
Can we just leave that to staff to figure out?
Sure. I'm going to give the trustees time to see if they have, if there's to add anything else they might want to add, actually. Not, this is an action item, right? So I assume we need some kind of motion. Is that correct, Jennifer? Is that what we're?
Yeah, I think a motion would be good. A motion to approve the town manager drafting a letter to support this grant opportunity for Nederland Fire Department.
So moved. Can we do that?
Yes.
Perfect.
Well
Well
done.
done, trustee Maris. You learn
I'll
all the
second.
shortcuts.
See when you're ready.
Trustee Maris,
Yes.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Jocelyn,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sterling,
Yes.
and Mayor Billy.
Yes,
Thank you.
motion passes. Thanks, everyone. We appreciate it. Thank you, Charlie, for
Yes,
joining
thanks,
us.
thanks, everybody. Yep, we appreciate it from the Fire Protection District as well. Thank you.
Thanks, chief.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on. Oh, go ahead. There's something.
Never mind. Sorry.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to our one and only discussion item of the evening, the Board of Trustees Compensation Benefits Participation Advisory Board recognition. John?
Mayor and trustees, on March 3rd, we had an initial conversation about changing board compensation as we kind of move forward. And I had presented a staff report that gave a salary survey data for other boards that were similar to yours within the Colorado area. During that discussion, you requested us to return with some additional analysis, including what potential adjustments might look like, how you might participate in retirement and medical benefits, whether there's a possibility of recognition or stipends for advisory boards, tax and reporting considerations associated with benefits, and whether these costs could be allocated across different town funds, including the Mountain Recreation Enterprise Fund that would be associated with Eldora. I wrote this memo to provide additional context and fiscal information to assist you in determining whether you want to move forward with the decision. Also, Town Treasurer Rita Six is here, and she can answer questions too if you have further questions that are best for her. In this case, this is a legislative action, so that's kind of your decision-making power right now. You're trying to create policy for the board. And so that's what this conversation is structured around. Do you have a potential ordinance that's attached to my staff report? And that's just to give you an idea of what that document might look like. You have the power to change that document in this case, and I think that that's part of what this discussion is bringing forward. Just as a little bit of background to remember, the compensation that you currently get, the mayor is at $250 a month. The trustees are $150 a month. The current annual cost for that is $3,000 for the mayor and $10,800 for the trustees, for $13,800 that's currently budgeted. We did look at retirement benefits. You could potentially participate in our retirement plan. As you know, we may be changing that soon. We recently enrolled in CRA, and we're going to bring a conversation about that for staff forward soon to finalize that decision. The town is currently matching 5% of employee salaries for retirement benefits. So I tried to give an idea here of what that additional match would cost, which would be, if everybody matches fully, about $690. That'd make the total compensation package about $14,490 for the budget. You can also change that. That doesn't have to be how you participate as a board. That's a policy question. For medical benefits, same situation. You are able to participate in the benefits. Participation in these benefits are possible for the Board of Trustees because you are taxable employees. I provided in the staff report our benefit cost breakdown for the different plans that we currently have. For staff, we have one plan that is essentially free for the employee, and then they go all the way up to about $1,600 a month, depending on which plan you have. There's several different options that the board could consider for your participation in such a plan. You could be eligible without a town contribution, meaning you could put your salary to it and then pay like the difference if there is one for the plan. You could participate at the same employer contribution that we provide employees. You could choose a different contribution level for elected officials. And you could limit town contributions to employee only coverage. So then like that would be kind of like keep the current structure as it is, but the board would just, I guess, essentially participate like we said in the first option, just eligibility for the plan. The fiscal impact of this is highly dependent on what people would choose. And so I think that what I did is I just provided that cost breakdown so you can have an idea of what those plans cost to the employees. I know it's a little bit complicated to understand what those are, but basically we have one Kaiser plan. That's kind of an in-network plan for Kaiser Permanente, and that's the one that we offer for free for employees. And that gives coverage at Kaiser for all the different kinds of things that they do. And then we have two EPO plans, which are provider plans that have a premium associated with it, but they don't have a deductible. So they're actually pretty good plans as well. And they have just different levels of coverage. They're just not through Kaiser, they're through different providers. I can also give you more information about those plans. They're available on our provider website, and you can see a breakdown of those if you'd like, and I can provide the link. The compensation scenarios that you see in the staff report, these are really just me thinking through different scenarios. I've got the current compensation listed for where you are right now with that kind of $13,800 that is budgeted, and then kind of what retirement might cost. This does not include those medical benefits because it's so dependent on what would be picked. If you remember from my last staff report, I provided you an idea of what inflation from 2014 to now might look like. That would increase the overall compensation for everyone to $18,630. So not a dramatic increase, but just kind of taking into account time. And then I provided you three ranges, which are generally seen in that salary survey from the last staff report. And this is kind of low range, mid range, high range. And what I was trying to think about is that as we kind of move forward, the requirements of being on the Board of Trustees is there's a time requirement, there's the reading and knowledge requirement, and then just kind of the different pieces that are required as we move forward with the Eldora acquisition and the different complexities that the town is experiencing right now. And so that is what I have in those scenarios. I think one thing I'd like to note is that you guys can create your own scenario. These numbers are just kind of to give an idea of what ranges might look like. In terms of advisory board stipends or recognition, as you know, we've got basically 5 different boards, including the Downtown Development Authority. Most of these boards have 7 members and or an alternate member. I gave an idea of what stipend or recognition might look like per meeting if we were to do this. If it was $25 a meeting, it's approximately $2,100 a board. $50 a meeting doubles that, and then $75 a meeting would be $6,300 per board. I do think that it might be worth considering the Downtown Development Authority separately because they are a quasi-governmental entity, and so I think we just need to look at that a little bit more. If we did apply that $50 stipend across the other 4 advisory boards, the annual cost would be about $16,800. If we did it for everyone, it's about $21,000. On the community center pass question, I think that there is ability to do those kinds of programs, but they are typically, those benefits might be treated as fringe benefits or reportable under the federal tax law. And that's dependent on our auditor. And that's a question that we have asked, but we don't fully have an answer to yet. And so if you wanted to do that, what we would do is we would just work to make sure that we apply the applicable correct tax treatment to that benefit.
John, just a real quick question on that, because typically it's like the face value is considered almost like a payment to you, right? And so can you just remind us what the costs are for the community center? Break them down.
I'm sorry, I should have put that in the staff report. And I, if it's all right, I will follow up. I can provide you the cost breakdown,
Okay.
but it's not a significant amount a month. There is a rule also that for a community-owned facility by a government, it can be treated as a fringe benefit of owning that facility. So that could be something that happens, but that would need to be in conjunction with our auditor. But I will provide an answer to that question.
Okay.
I just need to follow up. I did put in here, there could be structures like you could provide those passes directly. You could provide a partial subsidy towards membership, or you could do like a stipend that could be used for recreational benefits. Eldora passes was another thing that had come up. The thing, it's basically the same question. We would need to think about the cost and tax treatment of those benefits. I think there's a couple different options, like, and it's really the same ones. You could provide season passes directly, you could provide a partial subsidy, or you could provide a stipend. And I think for these programs that we do need additional analysis that requires our auditor and probably legal review. Enterprise fund and cost allocation. We did talk a little bit about whether or not these costs could be allocated across different town funds. We have several, as you all know, we have our water wastewater funds, our community center fund. We have the general fund, and then this new mountain recreation fund. And it is possible to allocate those costs. And what we need to do is have an updated methodology document that says how we're doing that. And so I think that that's something that we want to do as we're moving forward for costs in the budget, no matter what, is think about how those allocations work. But essentially, it is possible to do that. And that's what I wanted to present to you in this staff report. I also have a section in here about CPI adjustments, and this is a relatively new thing looking at board compensation in Colorado. It may be possible to add different kinds of CPI adjustments to the ordinance that would allow this to keep up over time. And I think that that could be done with a periodic review and adjustment by ordinance. And so I just wanted to include this in here because of the length of time it's been since the last update here. And I think moving forward, this is something we probably want to calendar regularly, semi-annually probably, just to make sure that we're compensating where we want to, but this is something that we could discuss. So in terms of recommendations, I think that you still have some conversation to do on your end. So my recommendation centers around kind of determining whether or not you want to establish a new compensation structure for the next term of office, determine whether retirement plan participation should be included, direct staff to evaluate different medical benefit participation options, which again, we have the cost breakdown sheet on the staff report here, and then address advisory board stipends, evaluate cost allocation across town funds. In my staff report, I did create a couple of motions for you because there is an ordinance before you tonight. If you would like to move it to action, the first step would be to go ahead and move that to action. And so there is a motion in the staff report to do that. And then there's a second motion that would amend section 225 of the Nederland Municipal Code, which is where the compensation for the Board of Trustees is addressed. And I put several bullet points in there. It's a little bit complicated, but essentially what we're trying to do is set the mayor compensation, trustee compensation, participation in the retirement program, eligibility for medical benefits, recreational or non-monetary benefits, advisory board stipends, future compensation process. And I think you don't necessarily have to have all of those in your motion if you guys choose to do that, but they're there just so that we make sure that we cover the bases on this one, because it will be a little bit of a complicated motion. I wanted to also say we've got Jennifer here who did some work on this as well, and then Rita Six, who also can talk through some of the financial pieces of this. And I think, you know, she's brought up some concerns just relative to the budget, how we treat other employees, and then also payroll taxes, which is important to consider too for the budgetary reasons. So that's it for me. I'm happy to answer questions, and Rita and Jennifer are here as well.
Thanks, John. Appreciate that. I think someone asked for the did you need the cost for the annual membership for the community center? Someone asked for that earlier. I think regular, it says adult annual $418, seniors $308. So, and do you have clarifying questions for John or Rita? All right, Rita, is there something is there things you want to say?
Yeah. Good evening,
Yeah.
Mayor, trustees. Yes, I would like to speak. Sorry, I'm not going to turn on my camera. I'm at the annex building. I showed up at the community center. Sorry. I thought I did not get the memo. That's okay. Anyhow, the internet's not very good here at the annex building, so I will leave my camera off. But anyway, I did have a couple of additional comments that I wanted to share with the board. So currently, the retirement benefits and health benefits are offered to full-time employees only. If that were to change and offered to part-time employees as well, that would have a significant impact on the town's budget. Also, we do need to consider that employer payroll taxes would need to be applied to any wage increases, and that would be a total of approximately 7.7%. Then wanted to quickly circle back to the health insurance piece, that health insurance that is free that John was talking about, that is just for an individual. It would not cover, family or a spouse. It would just be for an individual. And then I do have a call with the auditor tomorrow, and I will ask that question about the fringe benefits, if those would be taxable or not. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Rita. Appreciate that.
Hey,
Any questions
Rita,
for John or for
question.
Rita?
Rita, a question when it comes to, because you said a significant impact, but what's the actual dollar amount if part-time employees are offered? Because this is something that we're going to have to do anyway.
Right. And I would need to, I just learned about that today, so I'm going to have to do some math on that. That actually, the retirement would be easy, right? Because that's a straight 5%. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. They can choose to contribute less than 5%, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they contribute less, the town matches that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I could go the worst scenario if everybody 5%. Were to contribute 5%. Now, the health insurance piece would be a little trickier, right? Maybe we could just go like a middle. And here's another question, maybe if you wanted to pull up that health care benefits, it's on page 68 of 71 of the package.
Yep.
If you look at that, so you're just going to look at the employee cost per month. Looking at that, the board or whoever would need to make a minimum, let's just use the EPO3 plan, right? To cover the cost of employee cost per month, you would need to make obviously a lot more than 377, because you'd have the Social Security, Medicare taxes coming out, maybe Fed and state taxes. Your net would have to be a minimum of $377, right, to cover medical cost. So I just wanted to point that out too. That's just something to think about as well on the employee side, right? When we determine if we're going to go, increase your wages, what would it need to be able to cover some of these different health insurance plans?
Yeah.
Rita, does that mean that the employee cost has to come from payroll deduction? Like somebody couldn't just give, even if they only got paid $150 a month, they could
pay for it.
Basically write the town a check.
And I think that's what John was mentioning, that might be an option, right? That is actually a good question, because it is pre-taxed, right? No, I mean, if it comes out of our paychecks, it's a pre-tax benefit, right?
Right. So
I'm not actually sure if you all could just pay in. That would, John, have you talked to our insurance carrier about this or not?
Of whether or not you can cover the costs above, like if we don't make $377 a month and there's a little bit left over on top, like $100, can we pay for that out of pocket is the question.
I understand. My understanding, it is possible, and I have a little bit of experience where that was what was the case, but we can confirm the actual structure of that.
You did this in Idaho Springs, correct?
Yeah, for the mayor position.
Yeah. Okay. And I think it's kind of open for discussion in terms of, what the town pays, what that potential percentage might be. It doesn't necessarily have to be what's even right here. We're in that column that says town pays.
I have an additional clarifying question. I don't know if this is John or Rita, but Rita, you said like if we were to offer this to trustees, that we would have to offer it to all part-time employees. Like,
That's
is
correct.
that true? could we offer this benefit just to trustees, or would it would have to go to all?
It would have to go to all, is my understanding.
Okay, cool. That's super helpful. Thank you.
And Rita, is that because of the amount of hours worked, right? Like usually you have to work a certain number of hours a week to qualify for insurance, but if we were on it, it would basically be like, however, like 3 hours a week, right? So we'd be basically opening
Right,
up to
right now,
everybody.
I believe, yeah, full-time is considered 32 hours as far as the town goes, and that qualifies, you know, the employee for benefits.
Mhm. Okay.
And I don't know, I mean, that's maybe a Jennifer question. Can the policy be changed? I mean, that is, like I said, you know, if we're gonna consider, you know, having the board get the benefits, then maybe there needs to be a change in policy. That is not something I'm aware of.
I think usually you do have to give notice to an insurance carrier that you're changing the policy, and it has to be like a certain amount of time. At least that what I dealt with, I think, was 30 or 60 days notice before the change could take effect.
Okay.
I have a question. I don't know if this is a Rita or John, so feel free either of you to jump in. For CPI adjustments, John, you mentioned the possibility of adjusting, I think you said annually, and we would do that through the annual budget process. Does that mean that the amount paid to trustees could change each year, like during their term? Or are you saying that it would be for like the next person elected, but then we'd have people getting paid different things every year?
I think, Jennifer, would you mind talking about the CPI part?
Yeah, sure, definitely. Well, I think you all are aware, just to start, that there is a provision in state law related to emoluments and not increasing compensation during your term of office, you know, effective immediately. So there, I mean, the basic idea there is it's common sense. You can't feather your nest, and while you're in office, you can't approve a pay increase. But there have been a couple of municipalities that I'm aware of who have recently put in place automatic CPI adjustments that would be effective the next calendar year. It is not a decision of the board, it just happens. And so that would be, again, a couple of municipalities have done that. I think that is something that would pass the test of the statute of not a change to compensation that you approve, because essentially you're not making a decision. It's in the ordinance. I will say it's not in the ordinance that's drafted before you tonight. But again, it's just something that happens. And I would not tie it to anything. I would not tie it to, do you have money? Do you not have money? Because then it then becomes a decision for the board. I would just, the way I would draft it is it happens automatically based on a CPI number.
And then theoretically, if we change the salaries, it's for, you know, the new term starting in April. So we'll have people at different levels. But then the idea would be, however this ordinance is written, I would imagine we would want the next term, like everyone would match up at some point, so we don't have different amounts amongst all the trustees.
I've just done this. I've just drafted that CPI adjustment for another municipality. It is a little bit complicated because, yes, not everybody who is elected or appointed, who is on the board after April, will be entitled to this. So it's going to apply then. People in April of 2026 will be getting a pay, but it will have a stepped increase, essentially because of 2 CPI adjustments.
That makes sense. And then John, maybe you can speak a little bit to this. You know, we have some of the dollar amounts for different types of things that we could change. But I'm concerned too about kind of the HR and the admin side too. I know that we're only 7 people in the advisory boards. You know, if we talk about 4 or 5 of them with 7 people each, it's not a huge number of people, but I mean, it's more people than we currently have on staff, give or take, right? So can you speak a little bit about kind of the time that you kind of anticipate and the lift that we see for HR and from the admin perspective I mean, it's probably not a big deal to do the CPI adjustments or even just to increase the salaries for the next term. But for retirement, health insurance, you know, these other things that maybe require more in-depth work, can you just speak a little bit about what that could look like and what that time commitment from the admin side could be?
I think maybe Rita can follow up on me here. It's not nothing. I think currently Christy is our person who does a lot of that work, and she needs to onboard folks. I think you guys all may have met with her when you joined the board, and you know that there's certain documentation you need for tax purposes there. Those documents would triple for everyone for retirement and medical, and there are, you know, those processes, anyone who's been through them knows there's some workload there. And then there's some reporting and compliance pieces that happen with our providers. Our new insurance or our retirement company that we've kind of moved to, CRA, which you guys approved last fall, they take the fiduciary responsibility for those funds, but we still need to make sure people are inputted into the correct places and that we're managing active employees, I guess is how you'd say that. So I think there is some workload. Now, is it dramatic? It's probably not. It's probably compared to the workload that we're doing and what's coming. I think it probably fits in within that kind of structure, but there would still need to be these kind of meetings, which for an advisory board member who's working and trying to get to that and those kinds of things might be part of this. But Rita, do you have anything else that you think would add time to this process?
Yeah, I
for
think
staff?
it's truly, time, because they would obviously, whoever would have to meet with Christy and go through the paperwork for the health insurance piece, right? Fill out that. Retirement, I don't think that's that big of a deal. It's more the health insurance, I would think, is the tricky one, is the more labor intense one. And like John said, it's truly for the individuals to make time to meet with Christy. And I'm trying to think how many people I'm talking about other than the board, right? Our part-time employees. I'm trying to think of how many of those we have. Like I said, I have to do some thinking on that, but
Not sure all the part-time employees. We are going to be looking at our classifications for our employer levels will change in the near future, and that will change our hourly rate upon which one becomes full-time benefit eligible. But that might be one of the questions that you guys want to discuss is this, are we doing board compensation here? Are we thinking about the greater implications about part-time staff as well?
Board compensation. We're going to have to deal with part-time anyway. So. Another clarifying question, retirement. Do you know if it's permissible with these retirement funds that folks can add additional funds to it on top
Yes.
of just what they're paid? Okay, that's helpful. It gives folks flexibility if they need it. And yep, okay. I think that was my only question. And just for folks, because I can't quite recall who was all here at the last meeting when we discussed this, and we've got a few folks that have gotten on. This idea, was brought forward because I've been kind of trying to think through like all the different ways that we could attract new talent or different talent to the boards. And one of the things that we structurally miss out on is like folks that are hourly or maybe, that don't have that salary and maybe don't have access to like benefits or something. And so this really was kind of a way to find creative avenues to open up the pool a little bit more so that somebody might be willing to raise their hand if they knew that there was some of these additional incentives. Because, when you're trying to figure out, well, do I go and spend 4 hours in a board meeting and, additional 2 hours of reading time? And, especially folks where every hour matters. And, this was a way to kind of to jumpstart some of that creative thinking. So.
Thanks, Nicole. Other questions?
Sorry, just on this part about cost allocation, at this point, like if we were to just kind of let's just say like kind of a minimal increase to BOT compensation and maybe a health insurance benefit, do we realistically have options to take that out of anywhere besides the general fund? Like I get if we start bringing in some of the other boards or start offering wider benefits, then maybe that can come from other places. But if it's just BOT compensation, can we really use other funds?
We are going to be bringing forward a new cost allocation methodology to you. We want that to be a policy document that's written for the purposes of our audit. And we are exploring that for supplemental budget purposes. But yes, your work, the test for an allocation is this work required for the work in that fund to happen? And I think there's a reasonable case to be made that the work of the Board of Trustees is to direct the work that happens across our funds. And I think for that reason, it's admissible. Now, in terms of the greater fiscal considerations here, I think you guys are aware of the financial situation that we're in right now as a town. I think we're making great progress. I think things are happening that are really good right now. And I think I'm really pleased with the direction that we're taking, but I do think it is still a time for some careful thought about budget allocations. The other thing is this is not currently budgeted. We are anticipating bringing forward a supplemental budget to you in April to kind of work through some of the things that we've been doing. But I want to mention that is something to take into account as you guys have your discussion.
So hypothetically, if we were to move this to an action item and approve this tonight, there would be no way, like we wouldn't try to include any of the cost allocation aspect of it, and they would just have to come at a later time.
Jennifer, I don't think that's necessary for the ordinance, but okay.
Okay.
It's not.
Cool. Great. Thank you. That helps.
I just have one more question. Sorry, Billy.
No, don't be sorry, please.
Is it like knowing the financial situation we're in and the budget that we've created for for now, is it possible to create an ordinance that would change or increase the wages like 2 years from now? Once another, like not next month for April 2026, but for the term that starts in April 2028, to give us a 2-year kind of window to hopefully get back on track budget-wise.
I think the restriction is on them having to approve money, right, Jennifer? I think, but
No, you can definitely do that. There would not be an issue with that.
Well, thank you.
Question, thanks. Tierney?
Hey, John, the whole part of your purpose of looking at that cost allocation is to do what? Like that with the supplemental budget?
are you saying globally or for this particular issue?
Globally, yeah.
We have certain costs in our general fund that I think the general fund maybe is pulling more of its weight across the funds than is maybe 100% necessary. So we're looking to see if we can allocate the costs that do support the work across all the funds differently in an attempt to look at how our deficit is structured. And I think that that work overall will lead us down a path of good fiscal responsibility in the general fund, where we see some better outcomes in the general fund related to our reserves.
So there's potential that with some of that new policy around this, how costs are allocated, the general fund looks a lot better than what it does today.
I don't know if I'm comfortable saying yes or no to you, but that's the hope.
So basically, though, what would happen then is, as you probably know, it would just go to a different fund, right? And reduce their fund balance. But it'll make the general fund look better.
Right. Well, I guess the argument would be that time and energy, if it's done properly and if it's spread out across all those funds, there are other funds that are generally a little bit more healthier. And so if it can be done in a legal way,
Exactly.
and if it makes sense, then I can see why there would be, I can see why that would make sense.
And just as a reminder, we're already doing, there's that line item, if you remember from budget season, that admin and finance allocation. We're already doing that. So the community center fund and the sewer and water are already contributing some funds to the general fund to offset some of the cost of John, myself, Christy. However, we think that we could potentially allocate even more of those dollars to the other funds. And potentially even some to the enterprise fund, correct, John? Is what we're thinking?
Yeah, we're trying to make sure that the work is associated with the work. We're not just allocating funds, we're wanting to align the work.
Yep.
Questions?
Sorry, one more follow-up. Jennifer, if we did do an ordinance that increased the salaries in 2028, could we do it for the entire board at that point? Because it's midterm for people, but for the midterm people, we're making a decision before they started their new term. And then it'd be for new term people at that point. So it would just be across the board. We wouldn't have to do this piecemeal stuff.
Yeah, I think you could do that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Would that work for Matt?
Who's
But he's not making the decision. It's really factored by who is making the decision.
Got it.
But that would be if we approved it tonight or next meeting before the election. Otherwise, those guys are on the board and they would potentially still be here in 2 years.
Right.
Yeah. So this won't apply to everyone, not everyone. So the budget implications would actually be less than what we're looking at. It's another caveat.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point, Nicole, right? Like, those of us who are not going to benefit from this for the next 2 years, like, wouldn't be impacted by these numbers.
Yep.
Any other clarifying questions or comments?
John, is the Youth Advisory Board, is that a different type of board than these other advisory boards are?
Yes, it's not. Going back to our boards and commissions conversation we had last year, our boards are not codified. Certain of our boards are advisory boards, SAB, ProSAB, and the Youth Advisory Board are the specific examples. And I suppose NEPADAC, although NEPADAC has a different, it's a little bit different. So I think one of the things also we've talked about is bringing that ordinance back forward so we can put some codification into our code for those boards. But it is a little bit different. It's more of a, I wouldn't say it's informal, but it's not the same as planning commission.
But what about like SAB and ProSAB? Is it like does it have the same kind of definition as SAB and ProSAB?
Yes, I think so. I think the advisory boards are not really defined in code.
Okay. Well,
Just the planning commission.
I'm just thinking if we're thinking about giving stipends to these boards, including ProSAB and SAB, I wonder if we should also be thinking about YAB.
Well, and yeah, I guess we can discuss that in discussion.
Any other clarifying questions, comments before we go to public comment? Now let's go ahead and go to public comment. Folks, if you have something you want to say about this compensation conversation, now's the time. None, seeing no hands raised. We'll bring it back to the board for discussion.
And I'm just going to clarify that I am going to recuse myself from this conversation, given that any increase in compensation directly affects me.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew.
So one of the things to point out is actually just on the tail end of that conversation, where Trustee Maris, you were bringing up the other boards, because these other advisory boards are not defined in code, I would almost recommend that but the planning commission is. I would almost recommend that perhaps as like an entry point, we consider either just BOT or BOT plus planning commission. Yes, John.
Sorry, BZA is also defined in code.
Yeah.
And the DDA.
But the DDA is kind of separate in that it's a separate entity
BZA.
from. I know, but he also said in
sorry.
DDA.
Could the DDA fund themselves?
Right, but he said that the NDDA is also identified in code. And so, but I would also argue, like, because they can fund themselves and they're kind of a separate entity from the government, then and or, we just consider BOT for the time being with the next step of this compensation conversation happening, having the conversation for the other boards. Because I will also argue that the other boards have a much less time commitment. The Planning Commission was a little beefy this last year because of the sub area plan. I will say that. And so again, that's the only reason why I would consider Planning Commission is because oftentimes the time requirement can sometimes be a little more intense. They had a lot of working sessions, multiple months.
John, in the AIM, you have a line here that says the Downtown Development or Authority may require separate consideration because it functions as a quasi-governmental entity. That differentiates it from the BZA in that even though it's defined in code, it's not a purely governmental entity. Is that correct?
If you remember when we were talking about the bylaws and MOU, the DDA has statutory authority under Colorado state statute that's slightly different than the town. They work almost as like a town light, I guess you could say. They're very associated with the town. You guys appoint their board and have some other powers over them. However, they have powers that are associated with these like different kinds of governmental entities like districts. And there's a separate section of code that talks about what the powers of a DDA are. And so I think that's kind of what Mayor Pro Tem Sterling was saying is that they're just a little bit of a different kind of body. They have their own budget, although you guys approve it, and some different things. And I don't know if that really answers your question, but that was what my question was, that about them is they just function a little bit differently.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I guess that's all I was saying. Yeah. Thank you.
I guess I'll just jump in with some thoughts. I'm really torn because Nicole, I totally hear what you're saying, and I actually agree completely. Right, we want to attract as many people as we can to serve on the board, right, and to give their time and to commit their time. And to do really good work. And if we have people that are doing really good work, then hopefully that shows in how town is, continues to be managed and continues to improve on all aspects. So I completely understand where you're coming from there, and I agree with that. But on the other hand, I'm still faced with that practical reality of our budget for this year. And I'm worried about making this change right now just because of our budget and it be us working at a shortfall for multiple years now. Any kind of increase in budget feels like a disservice to future boards who have to deal with who have to deal with the reality of the budget and our expenses. So I'm really torn about, it's like this chicken and egg problem, right? Where you want to attract more and like really good talent who hopefully will kind of fix some of these issues that we have and continue to work on them and be committed to them. And how do you do that without kind of paying for their time and showing the value of their time? But on the other hand, we don't have them. I'm worried we don't have the money right now. That could change by next year, right? By next year, our budget could be looking a lot different. Our expenses could be looking a lot different. So it's hard to also work in this very, very unknown space right now. So I'm really torn. I feel like right now, and obviously I'm the first person to talk, so I could be probably convinced different ways and hear other people's perspectives and other ideas, but I'm kind of leaning towards this inflationary increase for now. Whether it be for April and then doing it with a CPI adjustment. So that feels like relatively basic, but it's something that's built in, acknowledging just inflation and acknowledging that this value increases each year. And whether it be starting in April or starting in 2028, so it's also easier to just track and manage and everybody gets this increase across the board at the same time. That's kind of what I would be leaning towards now. And then like the retirement piece, it sounded like that was a relatively like an easier lift from an admin perspective as well. So that would be kind of where I'm at the maybe, but everything else feels like a lot to be changing right now, all at the same time.
Thanks, Tierney. What are other folks thinking?
Yeah, so to speak to some of that, there is a whole wide range of things that we're going to have to be going into the process of changing anyway right now. And this sort of tucks into that. And, even if I look at the ranges here, let's say range 1, which I'm on page 6471 of the packet. And range 1 is, for a trustee, it goes from a current of 1,800. And John, if I'm reading this right, then that range 1 would then jump from 1,800 to 4,800, correct?
Yes.
Yes. And what I'm wondering, Jennifer, if there is an option that hold on. If we had the opportunity to split this with the enterprise fund, then the opportunity or what comes out of that general fund is now a difference of potentially, so 4,800, let's just say hypothetically it's a 50-50 split. So 4,800 minus what's the difference is the 1,800, so it's a 3,000. So 4,800 divided by 2 is we're looking at 2,400 from each of the potential funds, like hypothetically, just saying hypothetically. So then that impact is a lot less than even what the amounts were from a budgetary standpoint, because we are allocating those in different ways. So I just, I would mention that as a
Nicole, can I
potential.
ask you kind of a follow-up question to that though, or kind of a counterpoint to that point?
Sure.
Well, that's just trustee, right? If we're talking about mayor as well, that also increases. So it is multiple increases. And then how do you feel about the fact that we've talked a lot about being very, very conservative with, everything to do with the enterprise fund right now? I feel concerned that we don't have enough, like, we haven't even started managing the resort yet. We haven't
Yeah.
closed yet. So I worry about promising even $2,000, even, $4,000, that would be half for mayor. That's still dollars that we don't know much about yet. And I get the point that it's being tucked in, right? We're gonna have to be doing these changes for other kinds of things with the acquisition, but we don't really know what they mean yet. So it feels hard to be tucking in this change when we don't know yet what else we're going to be changing. That's my concern about that. And I don't know if you have thoughts or, responses to that.
No, sure. It's a fair point. And I can tell you this will always be a reason not to move forward.
Mhm.
Always. It'll always be, we just don't have. And so this is really about, like, for me, it's investing in what we want this future structure to look like, and investing in some of these folks that I know are out there. They're just not coming forward because there is the time commitment and everything. And they're doing the math. It's just not worth it. We are a very privileged group on this call that have the discretionary, finances or whatnot, that we can say, yeah, sure, we can go ahead and volunteer our time, whatnot. So yeah, this is absolutely a balancing of values, and every time it will be a reason. There's more reasons not to move forward than there are reasons to. Absolutely.
Luke, what are your thoughts?
I'm torn, but I think just kind of in slightly different ways. I would be curious to know, of the people who might be considering stepping up to this position, does the difference between $150 a month and $400 a month make a difference in their decision making? Is that enough to tip the balance? I do hear people say often, like, why they won't is the time commitment, especially at night. The health insurance feels like a bigger draw for people, but especially if the impact of that is, just looking at this table, if we're offering people this sort of the same deal that employees get, where the town is paying, in most cases, the majority of the monthly cost, that puts a pretty substantial burden on the town's, budget. Like, if you have the 7 people and everybody chooses, a full family plan, the town is looking at, $1,800 a month per trustee to cover that cost.
I don't think that they could elect that. We get to set, like, what they elect. We could say that it's only the single.
Just for the trustee themselves, but even still, right? Even still, it's like $1,000 a month for each trust, for the trustee, if it's just one person.
Sorry, Luke, can we while we're on that, can we just get a clarification? Can we set different, I guess, requirements or like eligibility for the board versus like other town employees? Can it be like only single person for trustees, but employees can do their entire family.
So so the way that we have talked about it in the past is that it's a single amount, a cost, like allocation, right? So let's say hypothetically, we tell trustees you have $600 a month, right? My question is, if you have a $600 allotment, that could either go towards, pay in your paycheck or go towards access of healthcare that you otherwise wouldn't have access to. Right. So it's not necessarily let's adjust the parameters, let's adjust the percentages or anything, but let's have like what that allocation is and then be able to apply it accordingly. But John, correct me if I'm wrong on that's how that might work.
Yes, I think the test is generally that you have to provide the same insurance, the same classification of person. So you can have different insurance rules for different classes of employee, essentially, which you guys are not your employee like, I think, but that's the rule, is it has to be the same for everyone in a certain class.
But we would be our own class.
Essentially.
Right. So that, yeah. Right. Trustees are a class. So, and Nicole, I just want to make sure I'm clear on what you're saying. So say that trustee compensation is $600 a month. You could choose to take that as a paycheck. You get $600 a month, or you could take that and say, I want to put that towards my health insurance premium of, say like Rita was saying, you pick the EPO plan 3, the total cost of that is $1,300 a month. You're going to put $600 of your trustee compensation towards that, and then you're responsible for the remaining, whatever that is.
That's how I would design it. Yes, right. As yeah, previous HR. That's how I would design it.
Right.
But I also worked more. I worked more in the private sector. But I worked more in the private sector, not the public sector. But that's how I would design programs for folks.
Okay, I just want to make sure it was clear on what that suggestion was, just so that we can have a sense of, okay, then the town's budgetary load stays the same whether you choose to take the health insurance or you choose to just take the paycheck. So that makes it easier to budget for the whole thing.
Right. And so it doesn't become this variable of, darn it, this person, no, it's a straight up, this is our allocation to you. You get to choose your own adventure and decide how that goes. Because who knows, maybe, if we get some more information on these fringe benefits, maybe that Eldora pass is potentially equates to like, hey, sign me up for the Eldora pass. Don't really want the, the health benefits or whatever, but it doesn't matter. It's that allocation amount, So,
so I'm confused on how that would work. So if some of the board members were to choose to take a paycheck, right? So that would have employers' taxes and so on, as I had already mentioned. How would it look if, let's just say, Trustee Sterling were to choose to apply this to health insurance? What would the town do? How would that look? Would we pay you? How do you, I can't visualize that, how that would work. And maybe John knows more.
It's a defined contribution plan. So I think it could be done either where the contribution from the paycheck would go to the plan and then the employee would, or the board member would pay the difference. And that just needs to be a common, the process. I think it would just need to be the same for everyone. So everybody has the same rules there. So we need to build a little bit of a process for that. But
that's what, but Trustee Sterling was saying they would choose not to take a paycheck. Well, so how would that work?
Well, basically the allocation, whatever the costs are for that plan would go to, it's just like today, I deduct a certain amount out of my employee's paycheck for healthcare. Right. Yes, because there is an understanding of what I'm going to cover and what they're going to cover or whatnot.
That's correct.
And so this would, for our classification of employee, it would go towards, that cost, whatever that excess cost is, and or If that happens to be that's the portion that the town pays, $600 done, I have to pay the rest of it, which when, let's say with the EPO Plan 4 would be an additional $560 for the single plan. Does that make
So
because
yeah,
today
and
we already have it set up that the town pays a certain amount.
right.
And so for
And so
our classification, it would be perhaps slightly different based off that cap or whatever that what our payment is, our allotment.
so everybody gets paid, like everybody gets the same payroll. You could just, if you opt into health insurance, your entire payroll goes to your health insurance premium.
Yeah, because this is more of about access. You know, we cannot get these plans as like a single person shopping on the market. That is one of the benefits of being able to give people access to this. It's government benefits, typically very good benefits that otherwise they don't have access to. So this is more of a conversation around access. And would there, you know, folks that want to, hey, you're going to pay me $600? Okay, cool. And that's, by the way, that tier 1, that 7, that would be like for the mayor versus, but basically whatever that allotment is, now I have access to something that I otherwise wouldn't have access to. That's how I'm seeing it.
More comments? Guess I'll say, yeah, first of all, yeah, I agree. Tierney, you know, we talked in the past, Nicole, about you got to eat our broccoli. So yeah, dipping into the 2 funds seems like that may be premature. So yeah, I wouldn't want to touch the enterprise fund for this effort. Even though trustees will be doing much more work on that front. And I like, Tierney, I like your idea of like, if we do anything at all, that it's not active, it wouldn't kick in until 2028. That does seem cleaner because it just puts things completely at the end of everyone's term that's in this conversation. And our budget is in a place now where I'm in, yeah, I don't feel like, I think it's a poor, I would do, I mean, optics bother me too, and I won't lie about that. The optics of it continue to bother me, but the budget is just a money thing where I think making any kind of increase in our, you know, compensation now seems like a poor choice. So I do like the flexibility though. If this were to happen, I love the flexibility, Nicole, of like, here's your money. This is how much you get, and you get to decide how you get it. I do like that idea. I definitely, I guess I'm still, and I definitely love the idea of trying to get create more benefits so that we might increase who could show up for this. And I also go to what Luke said, like, you know, is $150 to 400, you know, a month to $400 a month really going to move the dial. So I kind of like the idea of shelving this still. So that's kind of right, presently said, unless we did something modest for 2028. I think the jump to 4,800 isn't modest necessarily. You know, the jump to range 1, I guess I should say. The cost of living is probably plenty. That's just where I say. I just feel like it's terrible timing. That's all. And it's also, you know, arguably great timing in that we have, you know, want to attract people, but I just think budget's key and optics bother me.
And to clarify, optics of what?
Just giving ourselves a raise in general, I don't like, and I know it doesn't kick in till later, but with the whole Eldora thing and going on and us maybe not being in the best place with the public, I think deciding to be a BOT a raise right now is just doesn't look good. Hence the optics word.
Yeah, for me, I don't worry about optics. I worry about those folks that we need, like, to attract and to give them access to something that maybe they otherwise wouldn't have access to. The whole idea was originally to just give access somehow for medical benefits, because of folks that work oftentimes hourly wages or two household incomes, and there's an opportunity that if you do have your time through the BOT, you now have access to very good benefits. So I'm less concerned about optics and just doing something that is going to help build out the structure for us moving forward. And if the modest increase is what you're saying is range 1, is that what you said, Billy?
No, I really would do no more personally. I'm in a headspace with this whole thing. As much as I hear what you're saying, like could it attract people? I guess I also wonder that whether it actually would. And so I'm more of just the cost of living. If we do anything in 2028, it'd be the soonest I feel like we should make it apply.
Jennifer, you said that you had just worked on this with so a couple like other municipalities or one other. Can you run down through like their decision-making process and how they ultimately came to, because they decided to do like the CPI or the cost of living increase on a rolling basis and also an increase, or what?
Yeah, they did. They did do an increase to the base compensation, and then also the annual cost of living adjustment. I mean, I think this is a very community specific decision.
Yeah.
This was Keystone that did this. Keystone's budget is different from Nederland's budget. Keystone was newly incorporated, and I think they were looking at what their compensation was that was set in the charter and looking to align more closely with what the elected officials in neighboring municipalities were, what their compensation was. So those are the things that they were looking at, is really just how does the compensation compare to what we set it at in the charter? What do neighboring municipalities, elected officials earn? And then they did do the annual cost of living adjustment.
Thanks for that perspective. Luke, what are you thinking?
Sorry, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Well, it
Go
might not
ahead.
be quick, but maybe John or Nicole can speak to this, or I don't know if you can speak to it right now, but we've now kind of alluded to the fact that we're going to have to change our health insurance offerings no matter what, right? To include, it sounds like to include part-time employees. But can you kind of elaborate on that a little bit about what do we know what the plan is, or what the timing is for that, or what it means to include part-time employees? Like, is it part-time starting at 10 hours a week, or is it anybody that works for even an hour a week? Because I guess my lingering question, Nicole, that I think is unanswered is, I've only worked in the private sector, but my understanding is that you have to set a like, okay, anyone that works more than this many hours a week is eligible for like our offerings for health insurance, right? And I'm worried that if we open it up and say, okay, well, we work, let's say on average 3 to 5 hours a week. If we're opening it up to anybody that works more than 3 hours a week, is that opening it up a lot more than we had planned to? knowing that we're going to have a lot more employees than we've ever had before? And are we being preemptive in doing this without doing our due diligence about how this could impact everything?
John, go ahead.
Okay. When the acquisition of Eldora occurs, we will jump into a different employment category than we currently are in under the American Care Act and different kinds of legal obligations of the town for its employees. And one of the implications of that is our full-time requirement needs to change from 32 hours to likely to 30 hours, which is okay. And that's been contemplated in models and everything like that. Eldora's staff has a couple of different categories. There are part-time employees, year-round employees, and seasonal full-time employees, essentially, are the main categories of use. Seasonal full-time employees can get benefits based on certain criteria about how long they worked there and eligibility in their handbook. And so it's not necessarily all part-time employees that need to get benefits, but those seasonal full-time employees that meet those eligibility requirements will be benefit eligible in our system. One other thing about Eldora that's different than the town is all employees over the age of 18 are eligible for retirement benefits. And so what we have been trying to do is structure a benefit program that most closely matches what Eldora employees get so that we're meeting or exceeding those standards that we know that they have. And nobody's losing anything as we kind of move forward. So that's where this conversation needs to go as we kind of move forward, and we're going to continue this work. This is something that we want to do close to the closing date of, when the new employees come on, we want to make sure that they're entering into a benefit environment similar to what they have now, and then that we're meeting our new requirements under state and federal law.
And all of that being said, we can also then is carving out this classification for us. And so regardless if those other classifications have a certain hourly, minimum that they have to have, our classification can be different from that.
Regarding our eligibility requirements, just to be clear. Okay.
That's what you're saying is like, what's the
Yeah.
minimum hour or whatever that we can do? Like we
Yeah.
would be we would be a different classification, just like it's a different classification of a seasonal hourly, just like it's a different classification of a full-time. And the triggers in which they get the health benefits.
Yeah, so we could say trustees, it doesn't matter how many hours a week you work, you're eligible for health insurance, and that doesn't impact anything for any other classification.
As long as the methodology is clean and consistent. We couldn't say Billy gets $1 and you get $7. It has to be, well, I mean, he's different than mayor, but like in general, it just needs to be across that classification in similar roles.
So when we are saying that we're going to be making a lot of changes anyway, that doesn't necessarily mean that we were going to make it, that we're not required to make any changes to what we get already. It's not like, okay, well, we're making changes for what employees are, which means that will include trustees anyway. These are all choices that we're making that we have the ability to make. And what we choose for us in no way impacts other employees of town.
That would be, yes, a fair statement, in that those changes and the reorganization of how we do things with town has to happen, right? All those things have to happen. And this could also happen in parallel because we are making those adjustments over there. Does that come through? Is that clear?
It is, and I guess I'm just worried about making a decision before we, like, John, you've actually talked to the insurance company. I know that you've done this before for Idaho Springs, that they've done different types of things, but I just want to be really clear that our insurance carrier has told us, yes, you can do this.
They're defined contribution plans. So that's why you can do that. I think the contribution the town gives is what the town gives. And then the remainder, we would need to work with CEBT and CRA, which are the two organizations, to make sure that the structure for how you pay for the difference is accounted for, but it's that's the policy, or I guess that's really the implementation piece here. It's just making sure that we have a structure.
So I'm sorry, I'm not following with all on this, but so the employer piece then, John, for that the town would need to pay, right? Wouldn't that affect some of these funds that, I mean, the general fund, the community center, if we were to, maybe I'm not understanding.
We could
Yes,
say
but
no
what I'm saying
employee or
is,
contribution, right, John? Like that could be something we could set is like for this category for trustees, the employer pays nothing, but you have access, but the employee can now the trustee can access these options.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is because we get to set that contribution. Right, John? That
yeah,
we're all
but in
saying the
terms
same
of
thing.
process
Correct?
for how that payment of the difference would be made, I can't tell you exactly what they're going to require, but that would be how we would structure it. So we would contribute and then you would be responsible for the remainder of whatever the plan choice was.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that I'm clear on that, because I thought I understood from what Nicole was saying is that the town actually isn't going to contribute anything. Like our trustee compensation could be put towards, you could just collect your paycheck, or you could put your paycheck towards the health insurance enrollment, and whatever isn't covered by that, you have to pay out of pocket. We're not, the town isn't contributing in addition to what our compensation contributes.
Yeah, in that scenario, yes, it would be
Right.
just, you know, is our paycheck, if we say we're not gonna, you know, we want it to go towards healthcare, right, in that scenario, it would be, we are paying towards the premium of what it costs each month to have
Right.
that plan.
Okay, so and I mean that at least in my head that works reasonably well. So here's the wrench for me in this idea is if the goal is access, as Nicole is saying, like, you know, we you know, this is a great health insurance plan that you couldn't normally get in the open market. Could somebody, and like, I don't know why somebody would do this, but just like if they're like, oh, actually, I want to collect my paycheck, but I want to also enroll in the health insurance plan. Like, are we able to set this up so really it just like if you want to enroll in health insurance, your payroll deduction happens and you're responsible for picking up the rest of it. And that's really the only way that this could play out.
Is it the only
I guess
way this could play out? I want to make sure I capture it correctly, what you're saying. Yeah, it would be your contribution, whether that happens through payroll deduction. Yeah, maybe the whole thing is like, okay, this is the allocated amount toward your health insurance. And then like John said, there would have to be that process in place to pay for the remainder.
Yeah. So I'm gonna try to sum up my feelings on this, because you know I'm still a little bit in the feeling of like, is this enough to tip the balance for people, right? Like this, you know, access to this health insurance, you know, it's great, but you know, it's still going to be a lot of money for somebody to cover themselves through this plan. And if our goal here is to encourage engagement and to try to attract people who, like as Tierney said, like are doing good work, right? Like this is what we really need. Like we need good people to come and do good work and be engaged and be committed. Like at the end of the day, I feel like, you know, we actually can't afford to put forth the benefits that would actually pull people in to give this by simply offering them benefits. Like at the end of the day, the reason people are gonna commit to this work is that they want to do something good for the town. They want to help their community. Like at the end of the day, that's what has to motivate you. You know, the paycheck or the benefits is never really going to be sufficient to be the primary motivator. And I'm not saying that because I don't think that we should not provide good, some good benefits and compensation. It just, I don't see it being the thing that drives attracting good people. So with that in mind,
yeah,
I think that we should provide a good benefit for the people because it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And I think that work should be compensated as best as the town can do. And so that's I feel like we should do this. I don't feel like doing this is going to help us attract the right people. So I think that's kind of like where I'm ending up on this is we should increase the compensation and as long as we can structure it in a way that the load on the impact of the town budget is controlled and standard, in this way that I think Nicole is suggesting of, you get a fixed compensation amount, you can apply that towards your health insurance benefit if you choose to. There's no increased burden to the town budget if you choose to do that. And that seems like a good way to give people some options and help to compensate people slightly better than we currently are. To me, it seems like it's going to be hard to pull that off tonight to move this to an action item and make this happen prior to the election. But if anybody else feels otherwise, I'm willing to consider that it might be possible.
John is raising his hand. John, you're on mute. Take yourself off mute.
It's just a question for Jennifer. Can the issue of benefits be separated from the issue of compensation and that added later? Because the benefits, is that needing to be covered by an ordinance in the same way as the actual compensation itself?
Well, it certainly can be done in a stage approach. You don't have to do it all tonight. You also don't have to do it tonight. You do have another meeting scheduled on March 31st. I think if you vote on March 31st and the ordinance is still not effective for 30 days, that's okay, because you as the board now is voting, and it wouldn't impact anybody until they are either elected or appointed in this new cycle. And so certainly, to go back to your question, John, yes, I think you can do it in this two separate ordinances. I do think it would be a good idea to, if the board decides to provide other benefits, I think it would be helpful to implement that by ordinance.
So any other,
the mechanism of the decision making, I think, should be done by ordinance.
You're talking about like maybe the other, like if community center benefit, for instance, or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I know that that's not in there now, right? Don't you all get a community center membership?
As an individual, but not the family.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I think that that's a best practice to put it in an ordinance, just because it provides a clear record, shows how it was done. I like the ordinance better.
Yeah.
But Jennifer, were you saying that like our current compensation of getting a community center benefit is not codified right now?
Correct.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, for my, it's never a good time. I mean, I can almost imagine in like a year and a half, folks, there's always going to be something. There's always going to be a reason. Yeah, the community didn't like that we did this or X or Y. I genuinely think that there's always going to be a reason not to move forward, but the access and to be able to increase. And when we looked at that compensation across all the regions, John, if you could just jog our memories, we were the lowest. Was that correct or no?
Akron was really, really low, I think, but they're a very tiny town.
They're like 300 people, right?
Yeah, it's very small.
Yeah, something like that. So even across the entire region, it was a lot less. So looking at, John, your idea of being able to do the benefits first and seeing what that looks like and the impacts. And Jennifer's right, we do have another meeting in March 31st. And I do agree, Luke, we are not going to, I think we still need some more information and like what the impacts are, like genuinely what the impacts are, what this would look like. This classification, if it did bump up to the range 1, then that's a $400 per month, as Trustee Miller's been saying, for the trustee. And yet, so I would just say having a more detailed plan of what this looks like for conversation in a couple weeks.
For me, as suspected, now hearing about different perspectives, I feel like I still lean towards the inflationary increase with a CPI annual adjustment, but I'm kind of back open to the opening up health insurance to trustees with no employer contribution at this point. But I think, John, I trust you, but I would really love before our next meeting to just get confirmation from our carrier to say like, yes, you can, this trustees and mayor can be one particular group, and you can do this in terms of, a $300 contribution a month with no employer contribution. And that could be different from everybody else, no matter how many hours a week they work. I think just having that in writing from them would make me feel a lot more comfortable making a decision like that.
Is there any other direction you'd like to have for the follow-up staff report here? I've got looking a little bit more at like actually showing you a program developed, and then looking at the defined contribution and the exact process for that, then the benefits question that Tierney just asked. Is there any other questions you'd like addressed?
Yes, but I don't think we're going to pull it close because you've talked about the supplemental budget in April, correct? At that second, or potentially second meeting in April. I think what's still in our heads is, the deficit that we currently have. And if there is any flexibility that you're saying, because John's mind can see it well before any of us, and he knows how these things are going to play out, even though he's not going to explicitly state it on the meeting today. But if there is a little bit of, just, I guess, awareness of how that budget shakes out with those different allocations, I think that would also be super helpful for us to reimagine. And I'm not saying you have to come with the full supplemental budget, but it is just, I think that's one of the lingering things, as well as like, what's the actual impact?
I could also bring forward a allocation methodology policy document that I think you guys could take a look at, like how I would be thinking through that process. But I will need to do a little bit of work on the back end to see what I can bring you, but I understand the question.
Yeah, and for me, and I don't know how others feel, less about the methodology, and once you've applied the methodology, what does it all look like? But I don't know if that's really feasible in 2 weeks. Do you get what I'm saying?
Can I give you a solid try on that last question and just see what I
Okay.
can bring? That's helpful. But I think I can answer the other questions and show you a program.
Like it.
And one thing I would say, I mean, if we are going to consider any kind of like per meeting payment for the other boards, I would feel like, you know, just starting that with the planning commission to begin with, and not unless there's a reason that we would have to treat the planning commission, BZA, and DDA as a group. Like, it just seems like that those guys, you know, they put in a ton of time, and in my mind, they kind of stick out from the rest of our other boards. It seems like trying to do this for all of the advisory boards is a little bit more than we can bite off at this time.
100% agree with that.
Tierney, I just want to make sure I'm following what you were saying. So you said what you are leaning towards is like the inflationary, rate with the CPI, and you said you're warming up a bit to the insurance, but it would just be like the person, the trustee would have to pay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, no employer contribution. I would love for us to increase this dramatically in the future. And maybe, I mean, could we do like an ordinance that this has to be looked at every 4 years? Like it has to come back before the board and they have to discuss it again? Or every year,
maybe.
yeah.
Why not every year?
Right. Because I think I do think that in a couple of years things might be looking a lot different. And really what's impacting my fiscal conservativeness right now is the budget for this year and the budget for last year. And if our budget looked differently, I would be feeling a lot differently.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, I know that if we're willing to do a little bit of math, the numbers are in there, but it would be nice to have a very direct, like, okay, if we choose the level 1 compensation increase, effective, immediate, for this next term, given that we would have 2, maybe 3 trustees that would actually be impacted by that.
Yeah.
What's the real number, right? Like, what's the real, not if all of the trustees get this much, like what's the impact for 2026? Given it's partial, it's half a year and it's half the trustees, what are the real numbers? I think that would be helpful.
Yeah. And I love the idea, Trustee Maris, of every year. This is because we are going to be building new systems, new structures. We need to be thinking about this in parallel. You can't ignore it. And we're at an inflection point that we need to really be dialing these things in.
Yeah,
that's reasonable. John, do you have what you need? What else do you need?
If there's any other direction, I think I'm bringing you a plan. I'm showing you some notice from CBT, CRA, what those contributions look like, and that's okay. Try to do a little bit more analysis around election timing and what actual impacts look like. We can look at adding language to the ordinance about readjusting. I think the only question I had for you was the CPI adjustment. Would you rather have language that just requires an annual or biannual review of the ordinance attached to, because I was thinking biannual would be attached to the election, so it happens before the next election, or would you rather just, I'm just wondering if there's any distinction there you guys would like to make.
I would say CPI adjustment automatic plus a requirement. I like that every 2 years. That makes sense because we won't really be able to change it anyway every year. So automatic every year, and then every other year it comes before the board to discuss and see if other changes need to happen.
You'd almost want to attach it to the strategic planning process so that it doesn't get forgotten. Somehow.
Yeah.
So can I, on the ordinance, right now, the draft ordinance has the applicability, how the ordinance will apply. It has compensation, has medical benefit participation, recreation facility benefit. So I'm hearing adding in a CPI automatic escalator. But what about the compensation or recreation facility benefit?
So I think oh, go ahead, Luke.
Well, I was just gonna say, my vote, given, the flux point in front of us, my vote would be just to table that for now and not try to complicate this already complicated ordinance with that.
The recreation facility benefit?
Yeah. I mean, we have our undocumented, rec center pass thing right now, but like, given that we have, potential ski pass, potential family rec center pass, like, it just seems like this, we're already trying to bite off a lot right now. I would rather just bring that back in an amendment or different ordinance later.
Well, so my only counterpoint to that is, one, are these considered taxable things? So we have to understand if these are fringe benefits. I think that's an outstanding question I would like to understand anyway. But then second is if it and these would count as compensation, Jennifer, like in the bucket of compensation, if you know what I'm talking about.
I think that there is an argument that they do. Yes.
That they do. Okay. So in that case, then.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying, you did say before, like, if it was a town-owned asset, or maybe it was John saying, like, if it was a town-owned asset, which both the community center and the ski area would potentially be, like, that they would be a different kind of benefit.
Well, what the test is, certain facilities owned by a governmental entity like us can be considered a fringe benefit, which I think is how the rec center pass is being treated. It's not so much undocumented, it's just the auditor treats it as a fringe benefit. However, that test needs to happen at the auditor level, and that's what Rita was saying she was going to talk to the auditor about, is whether or not these constitute fringe benefits or if they're taxable income. And that's a question that I think neither Rita or I are really qualified to answer without that opinion.
And that's a different issue. There's two separate issues. One is the taxability of it, and the other issue is whether it's considered compensation and can be then provided at any time or only provided at new terms. That's the other question.
And technically, if let's say the allotment is 400 for a trustee, it would sort of be deducted from that if it was treated as compensation. So that's the question that so in addition to the taxability of it, I'm also interested in what you just talked about is it compensation or non-compensation, and and how that would affect us.
I don't think that I don't need to spend any more time researching that. I mean, so it's emoluments is the word. Emoluments is defined as any type of benefit that is provided to an elected official that does have a dollar value worth. So there isn't, nobody has filed legal claims against a municipality for giving themselves, you know, a board giving themselves a pass to their recreation facility. So I don't have the ability to research that. I do, but I think that there is an argument that it is included within that definition. And so then should only be applied to people once they start a new term.
Even though we've already been getting it, but now that we're codifying it, it's different.
No, the one that you get right now is okay. So it's somebody, some point in time said it's okay to give the board free passes to the recreation center. The fact that it's not in your municipal code doesn't mean it wasn't done correctly. It could have been done correctly. It could have been done by resolution. It could have been done by an administrative, you know, some type of policy that the board approved. The reason why I like it codified is because then I know when it was done and I know how it was done, and we can look at it. So I'm not saying what you have right now is not appropriate.
So as written in this proposed ordinance, does that change anything, or is that the same as what we've been doing? It's just codified. It says that we would get a recreation facility membership during our term, and subject to the same terms and conditions applicable to town employees. So other town employees just get their single pass to the rec center, right? They don't get a family pass.
I think that this should be probably better defined. And so I would say if you're just going to keep your community center pass, then it should spell out that you have been receiving a community center pass, and that will continue. If it applies to a Eldora season pass, then that should be different. It should say something to that effect.
Okay. Got it. So this recreation facility benefit was broader than it's just not. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Sorry. Misunderstood. Yeah, I think like Luke, I would vote to just, I mean, we've been getting the community center pass. I think it's okay. It makes sense to me to put it into the ordinance and to codify that. I think it's a little premature to think about other kinds of recreational facility benefits right now.
Thanks, Tandy. Anything else to add or to tell John or Guy John, or John, do you need anything else from us?
Jennifer, you mentioned like kind of pushing us a little bit on that compensation part. Do we need tonight for us to do nods or votes about what what we want to see there, or is that something that we can leave open for our next discussion?
Well, you all saw John's aim, how he laid out a possible motion. The more we leave unanswered in the ordinance, it's going to be more challenging and difficult to approve a motion to make sure that everybody is on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever you want in there, I think you should say what you want to keep in there, to leave options open. If there's anything that you want taken out, let's take it out. So it's not confusing.
It sounds like we've definitely, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, everybody, but it sounds like we've narrowed it down to inflation or range 1 is the sense that I got from you guys. Does that sound at least right?
That sounds appropriate.
Yep. Yeah. And Yeah, you know, leaving out the recreational benefit for now. Just the planning commission for a per meeting stipend. My computer died, so I don't have anything else in front of me, but
And if we can't just do planning commission, then I'd be okay with planning commission and BZA, which it sounds like they're in a category of their own. DDA is separate because it's quasi-governmental, and the non-codified advisory boards are separate as well. So I would be okay with planning commission and BZA. I'd be good with starting with the 25 a meeting. It'd be great if we could do 50, but I'm cool with starting at 25 a meeting, and then every 2 years the next bot will come back and reassess.
I would almost argue for only PC, just because BZA meets sometimes once a quarter and sometimes not at all.
Oh, it'll be
Almost-
$25.
I don't think they met last year except once. Yeah.
Yeah, they
Wow.
only met like maybe once all last year. So it's like, you know, so that would just be my argument for the PC.
You could do that. You do not have to
No.
provide the same stipend to planning commission and BZA.
And I agree. Just planning commission, $25 a meeting sounds good to me. I don't know if you guys have other thoughts about the amount per meeting.
that's a great start. And
That's
yeah, we'll
the place to
revisit.
start. BZA is gonna miss that money. Just kidding.
Okay, well, that's what that helps for the ordinance.
Is that enough clarification, or you?
Unless you guys are prepared to provide the compensation for the medical benefits, just being able to participate with no employer contribution, is that the goal there?
It's my
Yeah,
vote.
basically, with the idea that our stipend could be applied toward it, but being able to have access.
And that's for the same for retirement and for medical?
Good question. I don't think we landed on retirement.
Okay.
I don't think
Because
it is.
retirement is discretionary. It's what you put into it is what you get matched. It's the match. That's the piece that would be the implication for town.
But we're talking about a 5% or whatever it was,
Yeah.
5% match on $400 a month. You know, that we're not talking about a huge pile of money here.
No, but one of my questions to John was whether or not you could put more in than your actual allotment. And so in that case,
Right, but
then
as far as budget, I mean, like what the town has to budget for match there, right? Like they only have to match 5% of your compensation.
no, it's I don't think we would need, John, you'd need to look into that, but it's not always 5% of compensation, it's 5% of your contribution. And so if I contribute
Okay.
more, that has a 5% implication on the behalf of town that is more than if I just put my paycheck into it.
So I would like to add to that. So this is how it works. If Rita were to contribute 10%, the town only matches 5% of wages.
Yeah,
That's exactly how it
that's what
goes.
it's called.
So it's 5% max.
Right.
so we're talking,
However,
so if we do $400 a month, that's $20 the town has to put up.
Per employee, correct.
However, Rita, the question to answer is if we can put in more, because if you can put in more to your retirement account than just the wages, like you can do a top off, there are scenarios like that, then the town's contribution is 5% more than what just my general wages would be.
Oh, you're saying if you were to contribute out of your own funds, I have no idea about that.
Yeah.
Cannot
That's
answer that
the-
question.
Yep, that's the question to be answered, because then my concern would be, oh, wait a second, it's not 5% on 400. If an employee has the opportunity, or like a trustee, to add more in, then it's 5% off now, potentially more than that, because they want to take advantage of that match.
No, I think Rita said, like, it doesn't matter how much you like, if you contribute whatever, the town is still, like, it's maxed at 5% of your.
Right. In other words, right now, the paperwork reads, you tell us how much you're going to contribute out of your paycheck, right? That's the
Yes.
paperwork. This much percent, blah, blah, blah. Anything else, what you're talking about, contributing privately, that is, I'm not familiar with that. That would definitely be something we need to talk to them about.
Yes, and as long as that 5% doesn't apply to that private contribution,
Correct.
I'm good. So
That's right.
Yeah.
Because then that would only be the 5%. I mean, it's an increase obviously to the budget, but it is not huge.
Right. Exactly. So that's just a little nuance, because many plans do allow you to do that. And I just want to make sure it wouldn't apply to that additional contribution that a trustee could make. So hopefully that's coming through clear.
I was not aware that that is an option for these kind of retirement plans. I know it is for like the simple IRAs and all that, but
Yeah.
not for this type of plan.
Yeah, we'll get it clarified just to make sure. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Jennifer, is that enough specificity for tonight?
It
Yeah.
is, yes. Thank you.
Could I just ask another question then, when we were talking about
Sure.
paying $25 to, all these other people? So those would then become employees, correct?
Ooh.
Very good point. Yes, they would have to become W-2s in order to make
Yes.
that happen.
Okay.
Is that, I'm not sure though that that's right, but
Well, that's how
Yeah, I
we're
thought-
classified, is as a
I think-
W-2.
I think there's distinction on the stipend, but Jennifer and I can do some research and make sure we clarify.
Yeah, because
Oh,
we are
that'd be
technically,
great.
yeah,
right,
because we're
if we
technically
wasn't.
classified as a W-2, and that's how we're able to access things like
That's
benefits.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I thought last time we asked this question, the per meeting stipend would not require them to be employees. It was just something we would, because it's not a paycheck.
We can confirm that in their staff report on the 31st, if that's okay.
yeah. Because if it's not a paycheck, then how do you distribute the funds?
That's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah, no, that's a good call out.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate that.
Billy?
Yes, sir.
Public comment on the.
Hmm?
You guys didn't do
Oh,
public
yes,
comment
yes.
on the.
Yeah.
Thank
oh,
you.
you did.
Yeah, we
You
did. Yeah,
I think
Oh,
we did. We
did.
just we've been in discussion so long we forgot.
Sorry.
There weren't any. I did, yeah. Thanks, John. With that, we will go to public comment on non-agenda items. I believe we have some. So 3 minutes public comment on non-agenda items. Oh, maybe we don't actually. And not hearing any, we will go to other business.
And that one, I do have a couple.
Cool.
So one, as I stand out here in the desert, in the dark, and the stars, one that has come up in a couple of conversations was to start looking at a dark sky designation for town, and kind of what that would look like. I know there's some other municipalities in the country that have done this. And so that would kind of be, something I would love for Nederland to do, especially with, the kind of growing concern of the impact of lights on, wildlife migrations and stuff. So I don't know, Billy, if you want to, throw in a couple more thoughts there, but I think a dark sky policy for town would be really cool.
Yeah, when I was talking, we were reviewing Tebow's plan for the new construction. They asked about lighting, and it was just kind of the way they talked about it. It made us think more about what would just be something to kind of bring forward, and learn more about the initiative and maybe and bring this forward to the board so we could talk more about it and for this development and future developments. I did go to it was interesting in February. I left Denver in the evening and flew to Prescott, Arizona, and as I was getting near landing, we were coming around San Francisco mountains, and all of a sudden the lights were just really weird. They were like these little like orange, faint, round things that, round globes hitting the ground or round light hitting the ground. I couldn't figure it out for a while, but the next day people I was meeting with were coming down from Flagstaff, and they said, "Oh yeah, that's Flagstaff. We have a dark sky initiative here. They're one of the first dark sky cities. It might have been the city itself, and there's the community right near there." But it was just amazing. Like it was hard to believe that was a good size population. So I think it'd be interesting to explore that more in future meetings and bring it up.
Cool.
Is there an interest in discussing this in a future meeting?
I guess I just ask where it sits in priority with all the other things that we're going to need to do in April 30th.
Yeah, I wouldn't
just future meeting.
Suggest, not next meeting. I think this is something we can do down the road. It's just one I wanted to throw out. The other one I think is a lot more pressing. So
I mean, and I guess it's just more about seeing if we want to get in a future meeting, get it on the forecaster. That definitely doesn't have to happen on the 31st.
Yeah. When you guys are talking about kind of like a dark sky town, are we talking about like ordinances and like code about like dark sky like lighting? So it would be coming to us as like a discussion item to then instruct planning commission to look into this stuff.
Yeah, and there's an official designation. I don't have it in front of me, but there's an official designation for a dark sky municipality, and just kind of governs code and building building code and ordinances.
And I know that like Boulder has like dark sky ordinances, right? Like for any like new builds, you have to do your lights down. And I think Boulder County does too. John, do you know if we have anything like that in our code?
We have several.
This is Brittany. We do.
Thanks.
Sorry. This is literally my life right now. We do have code that states the exterior lighting must be shielded down, and I believe there's some language also on like wattage. But something to keep in mind, kind of like you're saying, that's on new builds. You got to think existing builds. If you guys are going to have this conversation, you need to think about what that looks like. That is a lot of our code enforcement. So just thinking about like what you plan on that looking like and what you plan on that applying to would be super helpful on staff's end.
Yeah, I mean this is not something that's going to be like a quick initiative. It's just I think the first step here is just looking at what are the requirements to be a designated dark sky town, and then from there we can look at what that means, right? And so it's just kind of like step one.
My personal opinion is that the best place for this is to have a conversation for strategic planning and to see if where, because you're right, Luke, like this is just not it's not a small thing. And where does it fit within priority of some of the other things that John is going to come at us with? Because like my question to you would be like, okay, so dark skies designation, super cool. Where does it fall in place and priority with these other things that we absolutely have to hit? And I think that the strategic planning process is a wonderful conversation for that.
Yeah, well, and hopefully we can actually get to a strategic planning process. I know that's something we've been talking about as well.
Yep.
Well, let's, we can just kind of maybe keep it on the radar, and if an opportunity crops up to gather some more information, we can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good to go ahead, finish.
Well, no, I was gonna move on since
yeah, we'll plan to bring it up in strategic planning.
Yep.
Thank you.
So the next one, I've circulated some emails and conversations ahead of this, but BVSD is looking at applying for this DOLA grant for community playgrounds program that is, the intention is to make use of school grounds in off school hours. So, after school time, and then, weekends and summer. And so Caleb and some of the other folks involved are looking at a plan to improve the eastern end of the middle school field with some features, that would just be a little bit more useful for the community, especially looking at the summertime when we have that whole area is used as overflow parking for the Hesse Trailhead. So there could be, walking trails, boulders for scrambling, some signage about, wildfire, water use, the water treatment plant is there, the water intake is there. So there could be some stuff like that. They've got plans for some mountain bike features. So they're looking for some grant money. That grant deadline is April 1st. And for them to apply for the grant, they need a community engagement partner. And based on the guidelines of the grant, if the school district is the applicant, then a municipality has to be the community engagement partner. So the town would be the one to sign off on that. The agreement that we would need to sign to support them outlines some of the responsibilities for, who takes care of these things once they're built. The boilerplate agreement says, that the municipality would be responsible for long-term maintenance, but it doesn't have to be that way. These guys have been talking with some other groups, from Teens Inc. to Peak to Peak, that would be willing to take on the maintenance and responsibilities. Caleb is looking into BVSD already does a fair amount of grounds and facilities maintenance, so they would be able to just continue doing that, like irrigation and stuff like that. So like these are things they're already doing, and they would be able to continue doing that. So kind of what I wanted to bring up is, is this something that the board would be willing to consider and then get that agreement at our next meeting, so that these guys could hit that April 1st deadline.
I think John has something to say.
Yeah. I was the one who found this grant and I sent it to Caleb. And so I just say that because I think it's a really cool opportunity for us. I am concerned about the language that is in the agreement, and I'll read it to you. It says, "The town shall be primarily responsible for the long-term maintenance, security, operations of the community schoolyard during non-school hours, and as a publicly accessible park facility. This includes, but is not limited to, trash removal, groundskeeping, and safety inspections for community use." I understand what Trustee Miller is saying about this agreement could be structured differently, but this would create a long-term financial obligation for the town as well as a liability obligation for the town. And I want to make sure that those things are structured properly. I also am just noting that in terms of our capacity right now to write a grant application or an agreement before April 1st, especially with the work that we just discussed related to that compensation package, I'm concerned about that. And so I think that what I'm trying to express is that in terms of capacity and our ability, I want to make sure that there's a legal review of this document that would be created that would create these obligations for the town. And remember that that would be a funding thing and a liability thing. And when we're talking about features of the kind that we are, I think it's just important to remember that they can be modified, they can change over time, and they need to be constantly inspected. And then, the other things that need to happen and these kinds of things are a shared facility use plan that would include community access hours for when we're responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of the facility. So I am saying this not because I'm trying to damper it. I think it's a great plan, and that's why I wanted to share it with BVSD in the first place. But I am concerned about the risk management for this project and getting it done in a short period of time. And so that's what I'm trying to express. I'm not, if we're so directed, we will work on this and we'll make it happen. But we do have a lot of things happening right now, and I think in terms of capacity, I just need to understand where to put this in terms of the priority list.
And well, and I just want to get clear, like how much of the legwork can we offload onto BVSD or somebody like, because I mean, you're right. Like we have way too much to do between now and next meeting. If BVSD with some of our direction can modify the agreement, and so all review.
We lost you. Oh, there you come. There you
go. Oh, sorry. How much of that did I lose?
just a little bit. So go ahead and continue.
I was just saying, like, basically, how much can we offload? And so, like, if all we have to do is the final review, is that a possibility, or do we have to be responsible for that, for all of the?
Sorry. My concern is that the project is depending. You're supposed to be at a level where you can say what the budget for the project is and describe the project in those fiscal details. This is a pretty typical Department of Local Affairs application. And my concern is not so much that we can't finish the application. I think it just requires like understanding who the fiscal agent is for the project. And then there's budget work that would need to happen in coordination with RETA and then the school district. I think the school district would have to approve the project.
Hey, Luke.
Yeah, but I think I just hang on. I think we were a little bit off. So BVSD is the one applying for this grant, like not the town. Like our only role in this is to agree to be the partner in this way, which means to sign the agreement. Like they're working already with teens and with Peak to Peak, and that BVSD is applying for the grant, not us.
Well, the grant would be for the construction, and then we'd have to maintain. We'd be fiscally responsible for the maintenance. Is that right, John?
I don't think you can sign an agreement for a facility you don't understand. I think it needs to be clear what that liability is for that facility, and I think that's what you see in the community use partner and resolution section. It enables the community schoolyard to function as a public facility that is accessible outside of regular school hours. So that's why the community partner is involved, because that would involve like BCSO and all these different things that we need to do. And I think part of the reason why I'm saying the application scope of work is important is because to for you to understand what the requirements are for the town, we need to know what that facility looks like and what the implications are for the liability for our, we have governmental
Right,
immunity
right.
considerations and CIRSA considerations and all the different things that would need to go into that. So I think what we could do is we could definitely, I think this is something, these come up every year, and I'm not saying we wait, but I am saying I think there are some things that we need to understand, which we could look at those too. Like, what does this facility actually look like? Is there a design that's ready for the application? And can we come up with a community use agreement that puts the town in a position where we understand the liability requirements upon us and then the fiscal requirements long term as well? Those are my only two questions.
Right. So basically, like, and I'm a little bit late to the whole game, but what it sounds like is that their plan and proposal isn't far enough along to make this deadline.
It might be, but I think we need to understand, we need to be able to understand what is required of us under this agreement and how that would
Right.
look and make sure it passes our legal review before the board can agree to it. But we could try to do that by the 31st. It's a tight
Well,
window.
but that would depend on them having their plan to a point where there's enough of a design that you would understand what it is, which it sounds like that's not the case.
Yeah. Is it only once a year that this one comes up, John? Or is this a bi annual?
It's typically
Good
once a
question.
year. They may open it more often. I think it's depending on funding. And you might be able to do something where we can call the planning grant opportunity, which that would need to be a question for DOLA and our DOLA rep. And if that's possible, it's a lot more flexible. But I'm concerned about this. I guess I'm concerned about the narrative around the project, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And I mean, if it's not at a level that we understand what our liability and our responsibility is on it, then it makes it hard to come up with, a agreement that we can sign. So that I thought it was farther along than that. So
it might be, but what I'm telling you is what I can do is I think the 31st we could leave space on the agenda to approve an agreement, and I could have a conversation with BVSD representatives, which I think would be Caleb, and see where we're at, and if he has an idea about how he'd like to structure an agreement. Because the other question is if BVSD has to approve it, it might be also a thing. So I think what we could be directed to do that work and try to bring this forward. It's just the matter of making sure we have all the pieces in place.
Yeah. I know that they have met with the DOLA representative on some of this stuff. But
that's a really good point, Luke, though. If Caleb has to go through BVSD to get an approval, like, it sounds like there's some feasibility even upfront to assess, because if that's a thing, there's no way we can meet a March 31st deadline.
Yeah. And they so here I'll do a bit of legwork, and I'll circle back with Sam.
Hey, I'm back. All the kids are in bed. Sorry.
Oh, cool.
Jump off. And Jenna's at a dinner party.
Speak to the devil. Sam, can you provide any more detail about the state of this application?
Yeah, so to my understanding, like, basically I got pulled in sort of, I think it just was became made aware of rather last minute. Obviously it's not ideal to be doing this in this format, right? Like, you'd rather have a plan that you're reviewing and know the full scope of everything at this stage. But we are rapidly putting together the plan so we don't miss the opportunity this week, so that we will have a submittable proposal to the grant. And then just fill me in. What have I missed that you've already explained to this point, Luke?
Well, just it kind of worth, like, I was going to give an overview, and we're talking about just the lack of ability for the town to understand, like, what their both liability is and what their, sort of financial responsibility would be long term
Yeah.
without understanding like what the actual plan is.
So
And
let me,
so,
go ahead.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's, if you got more
So
to add.
here's the problem is like we don't have that information. That is problematic, and like you can't make a good decision at the moment without that information, without knowing essentially the risk profile of it, because we don't have it right now, because it literally was, I was made aware of it last week, because the school was Caleb and Sean found out about it, and they were like, well, we don't want to miss this opportunity. And so they were wondering, is there basically an interest in the town being what's the language? I have to pull it up right in front of me, but the
community engagement partner, I think is.
Yeah. And then I think if I'm in your shoes, I'm saying, well, yeah, I'm interested, but what am I being interested in? What is the actual roles and responsibilities and risk involved? What's the financial, like risk involved in the worst case scenario? And and the best case scenario, what does that workload share look like? We don't have that answer right now. Friday, I could probably have that answered. Like, we're working super aggressively to figure out what this would look like as a submitted proposal. So it's more coming in front of the BOT and saying, is there any mechanism of like, and there may not be, to say, yeah, we're interested if you can give us X, right? We're interested to like be the community partner, because essentially the whole deal with the grant that it requires some community partner. Like that's the whole piece of the puzzle. And to do that at a last minute stage is like, well, sure, I want to be your partner, but what am I partnering in? Right. And I would say that's just the reality of it in this immediate moment. And I wish it wasn't, but it's also like an opportunity that has the upside of potentially 800. The top end of what can be received is 150,000 for planning, to my understanding, and 850,000 for actual construction. So, is it that we're going to get all of that? I don't know, but it's a pretty big chunk of money that serves the community if we do it right. So, I don't know. You all tell me. Like, my thought is, bring it forward in this other business. I don't want to waste your time, but what's the format for me to get something back to you as the liaison of being just the parks chair that got asked to be involved with this, and me just being someone who's like, yeah, I think this is great. Of course, I'm going to say yes and try and help.
I want to clarify and make sure that the city, we can even be a community partner if the school district isn't in our municipal boundaries.
Good question, and I'm going to take a note of it because I don't have that answer right now, and I will ask the coordinator from the state of
John,
Colorado.
You said you
The answer
do?
is yes, we can.
We
It
can.
just needs to be a municipality. I've worked in this grant before.
Have you? So you know it probably better than I do in that regard.
It's possible. It's just I think there's some problems. And number one is they're going to be expecting a level of design that we can show them the project. And what I was telling them, Sam, is my concern is not so much applying for the project, because I love this program. I think this is a great idea. It's more just that the agreement puts liability and maintenance requirements on the town, and from a monetary.
Go ahead.
No, that's it. I think maybe Caleb, and maybe by Friday, if you hadn't, because what I was going to suggest is the other thing I'm trying to say is I don't have capacity to chase this down, but if you do, and the school.
I do. Yeah. And we're not asking for capacity from the town side. However,
I just think the legal review is going to have to go through a process. And I think what my concern is BBSD has signed off on this or not. And then my other question is like, for us, I would need this information for the meeting on the 31st, like no later than Monday, probably.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense within the timeline. And like, of all the things to invest the energy into, because it is such a big potential upside, it makes sense to essentially do the sprint for it and do it right. And that's what Caleb and Sean and I are doing at this point. And so the other question is, that's like a sample agreement framework. Maybe that's like, hey, the town is willing to be the community partner, but doesn't, want to take on this portion of the, like that. I think that agreement, if I look at it, I go like, okay, how much are we doing here? And also BVSD has a pretty serious budget, like just in general. So can BVSD just essentially handle all of it? That's what I would be looking to do, is like the town is just sort of agreeing to essentially co-sponsor this thing, but not involve a lot of its resources, ideally at all, and have just BVSD do the maintenance. That would be what I would see as a good setup here.
Yeah,
you tell me.
Caleb said that they did. BVSD has like a sort of like set of maintenance that they already do,
right?
Which could probably encompass a large majority of what needs to be done.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, we are talking about something potentially pretty cool, but it's really like just redesigning the middle school field, like into more of a park. Like that's, and I don't say that lightly, so to speak, but at the same time, it's like BVSD, I feel like if we do it properly, and it seems like they could handle that, they're already on the school grounds in that regard. So this is more just like, in a lot of ways, it feels rushed to me to bring it to this meeting, quite frankly, and a little bit preemptive, but also because of the deadline. I'm bringing it, and everyone else is out, and so I'm like, yeah, I will attend. So.
Yeah, I think the real kicker, as John has said, is if it requires BVSD approval, everyone's going to have a hard time meeting that deadline for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's on Caleb and Sean's end, quite frankly. Yeah. They're working to push for that, and so I'm going to say that I'm not going to take on their role and say what can and can't be done in terms of, they think they can get it done. So
we don't know if that'll be a board decision or if that would be something, I can't think of the guy's name, but
Rob Price or something.
Rob, yeah, exactly.
Rob Price,
it may just sit in his office, and so we don't know that. So that's something you guys could find out.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, is there any further discussion to be had tonight to say, yeah, we're interested or is it kind of like, if you can get it back to us by this date, then we can seriously consider it? Because I think you can't seriously consider it right now. There's nothing to seriously technically consider,
Jonathan, what do you need by Monday?
I need to have the agreement in a form that I can have it reviewed by Jennifer, and that really, I think, is dependent on her time and capacity right now, because we are
yeah, you guys have a high
working
capacity
really hard on a lot of things, and I'm just trying to make sure I'm being honest. I don't think it's a insurmountable task, but we would need to make sure that we can do that review. And then the other thing is, if it's involving features, I'm just going to say mountain bike features or features that create risk profiles, we need to be able to talk about, and it's in the application too, but there would need to be an understanding of the.
I don't know that, and let me clarify something, because I don't know that this portion of that proposal makes sense to touch the whole bike park concept at all, actually. Okay. Yeah, so I want to clarify that. Like, maybe it does, but also this is really designed just to redesign like the fields and the schoolyard. Yeah. Not yes, that can be included. Yes, it's exciting. Yes, that's a separate thing essentially. I don't know that I even want to too much include it in this, quite frankly, because I think it just opens up a whole level of unknown discussion, and that's being handled already at the BVSD level on their land separately at this moment, and they're like, we're crossing T's and dotting I's to get the go ahead on that project. So I don't really necessarily want to muddy it up with this.
Okay. The application, I think the other question I have for you, Sam, that is a BVSD question, is the fiscal the fiscal agent of the
Yeah.
grant. I think it can go either way, but I think we need to just clarify that. And the only reason I was
We
saying
do.
features is I need to be able to understand from our insurance risk profile what they are, because that will determine if we need, what insurance we would need. Because part of this is keeping those spaces public. So
Yeah,
my
exactly.
immediate thoughts are, okay, what is the public safety requirement from BV or from BCSO? What do we need
Yeah.
to do from an insurance standpoint to make sure? Because even like a playground, we do playground inspections and things like that. So those are
Right.
the kinds of things that I think we would just need to know about.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm almost a little hesitant to include the bike side because it really is designed around like this wellness and education component and like playgroundy schoolyard update. And there's an interest in like potentially like a bit of a bouldering wall, which adds a risk element. But as far as the bike side, I honestly think that stays a separate thing. And I kind of like, I'm happy to talk about it. It's not secret or anything. I just don't want to include it in this discussion and like confuse the conversation. Luke, did you have something to add?
Well, I was just saying, like, kind of like at least what Caleb was sort of describing was like, some boulders, some walking paths, some signage about, fire, water usage, and, getting, making a space where, people who are waiting for a shuttle in Hesse in the summertime have something to walk around and do that's not just a big concrete building.
Yeah. It's kind of like a natural land, like a natural playground vibe. And it has to have an educational component with signage and things like that. And that is part of this as well. So, yeah. I appreciate you bringing it up though, because it helps me be able to clarify that the bike side of it, I think, kind of stays out of this. Like maybe it's a hub, maybe people hang out if there's a bike park, but I don't think this doesn't need to fund that. You know what I mean?
I just think if we understand that the insurance for whatever is there would be cool.
Yeah. And you have to, right? To be able to say yes. So, Billy, did you have something? And then I think it's really just go back to the group and say, we got to just get this thing to where it's ready to go, get BVSD to say yes, so that you all can go, yeah, we're interested in being the community partner, or, find another one basically to submit it with.
Well, and if I understand the grant guidelines, like if the school is the applicant, the community partner has to be the municipality.
Yeah, that's how it reads.
And then
and I don't know if that could extend to like Boulder in some way because it's a Boulder school, if it needed to, for example.
The other thing I would say is like, if we're going to modify the agreement, like we should definitely, whoever is going to do that work, minimizing the exposure to the town and, in those edits.
Yeah, as much as possible, for sure. Jonathan, do you know, and I don't want to belabor the point because I really just need to go back and like get to work on it at this point with Caleb and Sean, which I'm doing tomorrow, do you know if of places where this has been received before and like anything to note there? We worked with Chris LeMay. Is it LeMay?
It's LeMay.
He's helping us out with it as well. So
we turned